help, no, so that you would be able to improve and grow your business more. So I will be sharing my presentation. Okay. Klaro ba? Would it be okay kung I'd be able to uh, meet siguro in 10 seconds in a short introduction perhaps of the our incubatees?
Okay, all right. So take it away, incubatees. Who's around? So maybe we could hear from Dirtbag first.
Maayong buntag, no? uh, this would be kining very beneficial for both of for all of us if we're able to interact. So ayong kabalaka, you can speak in um, our dialect, no, or whatever language that it would be comfortable for you. You can ask me questions later on. I've seen the, I don't know, participants. I believe na these are all sole proprietorship, no, na mga organizations. So siguro later on when we um, warm up, no, I'll be able to meet all of you and see all of you and interact with all of you. So sige lang. Okay, let me share. I may continue. Okay. So for this morning, I will be sharing with you on entrepreneurial finance. No, so I believe somebody else is going to be taking care of taxation. So before that, no, I'd like to ask you a question. No, what is our goal in life? So for me, no, the simplest way to siguro define our objective is to attain happiness. No, so this is Tony Shea, and I've learned a lot, no, from his advocacy, and that is delivering happiness. So unsa man din yung delivering, unsa din yung happiness? Unsay na ay path to profits, purpose, and passion mo na iyang gitudlo. So with that, there are three ingredients now to happiness. The best businesses are the ones that can okay, the businesses the best businesses are really the ones that can combine passion, profits, and purpose. Unsay pasabot ani, no? Um, when you enter into a business or when you engage into a business, number one na requirement, Ana, is passion. Diba? Unsa man ang passion? If we're going to simplify that one, passion is the reason that you wake up in the morning. Diba? You feel energized and you feel encouraged to wake up na kay gusto buhaton. So the first ingredient daw to happiness is that uh, you are going after your passion. And if that passion is giving you profit, syempre, natay gabuhion, no? We have mouths to feed, we have our family, we have a lot of also other goals, no, like traveling, etc., etc. And if that passion can give us the money to finance, no, our daily needs, our goals of traveling abroad, our goals of having our own homes, our own car, no. So that's the second ingredient to happiness. And finally, no, Tony Shea says, no, the last ingredient to happiness is that when that passion and when that purpose allows you to fulfill your purpose, no? We are created to interact. Nobody is born or no man is an island. So if that passion and purpose will allow us to help other people, no? Help other people by giving them livelihood, or we help other people by giving them salaries so that they can also, no, feed, no, ang ilahang family, no, etc., etc. And of course, help also the community, no, by having this very successful business. We are also able to help our country, no. So kung i-combine mo yung three ingredients, then congratulations, you are on the path to happiness. So with that, no, we want to have, no, so I'm not going to question, you are here. This is your 30th tama ba, session. And thus, this shows your commitment um, to your business, no? Like you are here sitting down and listening and learning something new that might help your business. So this already is an indication, no, of your passion. So um, ang ato na lang pangutana, how do we profit, no? How do we improve our business so that we'll be able to sustain, no, and be able to exist for several long years. So that's what we're going to learn. So this morning, no, I'll be sharing with you about entrepreneurial finance. So, what are our objectives for this morning? We know that in a business, importante kaayo ang cash, importante kaayo ang funds, no? So, we'd like to learn, no, how we are able to bring in funds, no, and we'd like to learn how we're able to maximize these funds so that we'll be able to get higher profits and be able to sustain our business, no, for a very long time. So we know that improper accounting or improper recording leads to inaccurate basis for decision making. So if we have the wrong information, no, we also will be led to the wrong decisions. So we have to learn the basic terminologies or terms and bookkeeping methods which are used to determine if we are earning or losing money. So we will also be able to learn the basics of preparing financial statements. I understand, no? Our objective is not to be able to prepare the financial statements, no? Um, you have time, but that time should be invested or that time should be used to grow your business. So maybe if you have somebody to prepare the books for you, then at least, no, as business owners, our minimum requirement is that we understand, no, ang language that is being used, no, in the financial statements. We will also learn how to allocate these funds, no, as to where to invest the business income, how to manage cash, how to save, no, how to incur credit, no, or loans. So other techniques in improving the cash cycle and more that will improve the financial health of the enterprise. So we will be also learning how to record, to analyze, and to summarize, no, the financial history. And lastly, to understand and to interpret how to make use of this financial information so we will be able to make sound decisions. No? So, may na ang objective nato for this morning. So we will learn about the financial statements or the FS, no? Muna ato ang that's how we call that one in the no, sa business, ang FS or the financial statements. Specifically the statement of financial position or what we know as the balance sheet, the income statement, the cash flow, no? And we understand all these financial statements. We learn different strategies, no, of financing growth of the business and evaluating investment opportunities and options. So we first, no, would like to understand what is bookkeeping. So bookkeeping simply is to keep track of money-related activities for an individual or a business. No, so we just would like to keep track of what comes in or how much cash comes in, where is it from, no, and how much goes out. No? So outflow and what are these cash outflows for, no? So what kinds of money-related activities, specifically money and cash receipt or ato nadawat sa ato ang business. So either these are cash received from the income, no, or cash sales, or cash received from the payment, no, kung ang ato ang sales is on account, no, kung nagpautang ka, cash receipt can also be in the form of payment from our customers, no, sa ilang previous na ipamalit sa ato. And money-related activities also includes cash paid out, no? So, unsay gibayad nato sa atong business. Of course, we know that a business also has expenditures for it to run, no? So, ana. Then money-related activities specifically also includes sales, purchases, no, and other activities like payment of loans, no, or payment of salaries, payment of other expenses. So let's try to compare, no, what is personal bookkeeping. Of course, we understand, no, one of our mentors here, I've seen a former classmate, no, si Miss Rhea earlier. So Miss Rhea Hagisan has taught us about savings, no, or saving money, and the importance of the 52-week challenge, no. So that's for our personal finance, no. So cash received na to from our salaries, from our share in the profits, cash paid out like our expenses at home, no. What are the things that we own, and our debts, no, or meaning atong mga utang. However, unsa man yung bookkeeping for business, no? So when we talk about bookkeeping for business, this is cash received, cash paid out by the business, ang sales sa business, unsay gipamalit or bought or purchases, no, by the business, and the things owned by the business, and debts owned by the business. Later on, I will be emphasizing about these things owed, no, and these debts owed, no. So, how do we um, recognize this one sa business? So, why is bookkeeping important, no, for small businesses? We might think na tungod kay gagmay ang atong business, dili na ta mag-bookkeep, but we will have to understand, no, that bookkeeping is very important. Why? Just like a doctor, no, when you go to the doctor, you feel something, the doctor is going to identify, no, unsay mga something's wrong with your body, no? So, mangita siya mga symptoms that will lead him to identify what is wrong with the patient, no? And then be able to give, no, recommendations as to unsay medication nga kailangan to relieve, no, ang sakit sa patient, no? So, in a business, ang language sa business is found in your financial statement, and that's accounting, no? So, if we're able to understand the language, we will be able to identify unsay mga symptoms so that we will be able to make, no, decisions as to unsa ang pag-medicate sa business. Are there things that needs to be improved? Are there things na dapat undangon na nato? Are there things that needs to be continued, or perhaps dapat mas kadakon pa? So the information that we can get from bookkeeping will allow us to make sound decisions, no, para ma-improve nato ang atong business, no. So aron dili na ta, of course we know that experience is the best teacher, but you know, you don't have to really experience them to learn them, no. So experience from other teacher, and makita nato sa atong business na nanay indicators that will lead us to perhaps, no, hinay ang turnover sa atong inventory, or hinay ang atong pagbaligya, no. So these are the things that we will be able to identify in our results, no, or information from our bookkeeping. So when we're able to understand that one, we are able to make sound decisions, no. So muna siya. So we know that a business does not or should not end within 1 year, no, or in the short term, no. Ang tawag nato ana going concern. We have to presume that the business will continue for a very long time. So dapat nato sabton, no, unsay language o unsay mga nahitabo, so that we will be able to sustain the business, no, because we have to presume that the business will run for a very long time, no. And then periodicity, no. So we don't want information, no, ang sa Filipino saying unsaon nimo, how aanhin mo ang grass, no. What will you do with the grass kung patay na ang kabaw or baka, no. So we have to make, no, we have to have information that is at the right time, or information collected in time period, no, so that it can allow us to compare, that help us track our financial progress, no. So dapat ang atong information should be at the right time, so that our information or our decision should also be made, no, at the right time, dili ulahi, dili pud advance, no. So muna siya ang importante. That's why we have to have information right away, no. So financial statements provide information on financial position, meaning unsay status nimo as of a certain period. It also tells us about the performance, no, how well we did in a certain period. Taas ba ang sales, no? Ubos ba ang sales? Taas ba ang expenses? Ubos ba ang expenses? Did it give us profit? Did it give us loss? No? And the changes in financial position of a business to a wide range of users. financial statements is not only for the management no, or managers, for the owners, but as well as for other stakeholders. No? So, ang atong financial statements, gamiton siya sa ato ang customers, no? Or gamiton siya sa ato ang suppliers, or gamiton siya sa financial institutions should we decide later on to incur no, a loan so that we can finance the activities of the business. So financial statements, it provides or it gives us information about our assets, liabilities, equity, income, expense, changes in equity, cash flows, notes. We will be able to identify these later on. No, sa ako ni siyang i-emphasize later on para mahibaw-an ninyo unsa ni siya and what these are for, o unsay purpose ani. So, what is our intention para sa atong bookkeeping? So that we can make informed decisions. Dili ta gusto nga maghimo og baseless decision. No? So, when we are relying on what is in our pockets, for example, murag daghan man kaayo ang akong kwarta, no? Daghan baga kaayo ang akong bulsa, no? If we rely on information based on the cash that we have, no, we might be able to make decisions na dili siya sound, no. We might believe na dako ang atong cash pero ano din siya from our loans, no, and we buy and buy and buy without setting aside money for the payment of loans, no. So when we're not able to have this information that we need, no, our decisions would not be sound, no, so we don't want that one. So entrepreneurial finance, no, for small businesses, that means we are going to keep track of cash flow, no. So keeping track of cash flow is very important for any business, and it is only possible if you have accurate financial record. So it does not necessarily mean na naakay nindot na kaayo na accounting system, no. A simple notebook, no, will suffice, no, just keeping track of what comes in, asa ni siya gikan, what went out, or asa ni siya gipadulong, no. So cash in and cash out. So many profitable and growing businesses have failed because they have suddenly been hit by unexpected cash flow crisis. So importante kayo if we are able to keep track of our cash flows, no. So it's also very important, no, na we have to know ang profitability and growth of our business. So accurate bookkeeping allows you to see whether or not your business is actually making a profit. So we make different sales strategies, and to be able to identify if these sales strategies are indeed successful, no, or very if it is indeed helping the business, not so the only way to identify or the only way to assess whether these strategies are working or not is if we are able to record the transactions and see the results of these transactions through proper bookkeeping, no. And it can also allow us to make adjustments after evaluation of past performance, no. So we're only able to identify, no, what worked and what did not work if we are able to record the information or the data to give us information and to make us, no, to allow us to make, no, improvements, no, or decisions to improve or decisions to change. Okay, so good also bookkeeping allows us to be able to keep track and know, no, if we're able to pay the right amount of taxes. So it enables us to provide information to BIR regularly about business profits or losses so that they can assess the amount of taxes you owe, no. So how would we know if we're able to if we're paying the right amount of taxes, no? So of course, our taxes are based on our taxable income. So how do we know kung pila ang atong taxable income, no? If dili nato ma-record kung pila ang cash in or cash outflow, or we don't have no proper bookkeeping na mga records, no? And it also helps us para wala tay failure to keep up to date with tax affairs that can lead to serious repercussions we know na gamay lang na delay in the payment of taxes, no? Dako kaayo ang consequences ani, no? So, you know, ang penalties sa BIR, they are really meant to penalize so that dili na siya usbon, no? An example, we have to pay annual registration fee of 500. So in the next year, mag-renew ka on or before January 31, no? So 500 lang na for the whole year na na. Now suppose nalimtan nimo and you were able to pay on February 1. So moadto ka sa BIR and you say, ma'am, pila ang akong bayro nun? Or sir, pila ang akong bayro nun? So from 500, no? Computing ang penalties using no ang regulation no on penalties from 500 naa na kay 1,000 ana nga compromise penalty for delay of filing or non-filing and a delay of filing and delay of payment, and then 25% surcharge of the basic tax, which is 25% or of 500 or 125. So from 500 nahimo na siyang 1,625. So they are really meant to penalize you aron dili nakamuusab nga malate og bayad. And this 1,100 nga penalty, imagine ani unsa kasakit ni siya sa business. So this should be an expenditure nga pwedeng maiwasan if na-keep track nato kung unsay aton dapat bayaran and when, no? So that's why we have to have proper na bookkeeping, no, sa atong business. So before we no do unsay or understand no ang steps no in bookkeeping, we have to have this certain understanding first, or these principles, no. So sa business dapat bulag ang ownership no sa business ug sa owner, or personal ownership of the owner. Unsay pasabot ani? If the business buys a car, so ang ako makita din si Sir Dirtbag, to say si Sir Dirtbag nagpalit siya multicab para sa iyahang laundry business. Who owns the multicab? It is not personally ang owner no sa multicab, but it is the business. So accounting for the business must be kept separate from the affairs of the owner, no? So meaning kung ibutan nato si Mr. Dirtbag nagkuha siya money from the business para gipalit niya og personal no nga mga things, no? So dapat i-record na siya sa business na nagkuha, and that the owner owes the business. Dapat iuli ni Mr. Dirtbag dito sa business, or i-minus ni siya sa capital no ni Mr. Dirtbag, no, because dapat bulag yun no ang business of the owner, no, or affairs of the owner and affairs of the business. So muna siya ang first nato na dapat i-understand. Next, continuing concern or going concern. So we will assume that the business will continue to operate without any interruption for a very long time, no, or a very long span of time. So it's not going to close in the near future. So pasabot ana no kung moingon tag nangutang tag 1,000, dili sa nato i-consider ang time value of money, no? So mangutang tag 1,000, we record it at 1,000 as well in our books. And then conservatism, no? So information must be fair and reasonable. So dili overstated or understated. Like say, yes, nangutang ka og kwarta from our parents, no, para sa ato ang business. But how much should we record, no, ang pila ang atong utang? So conservatism, dapat i-record nato, for example, sa singlunon na kung natay gikasuhan, example na lang no kaso, and we say natay gikasuhan and we might be able to get 500,000 perhaps no kay para sa damages nga gi-cause ana nga tao para sa ato. So what should we record in our business? Dili nato i-record ang unsay dili pa sure nato nga madawat nga dako, no? So we assume the worst no for the business so that always ta on our toes. So for example, mag-record tag dako kaayo nga income nga dili di ay to siya dapat dako kaayo nga income. It makes us it no, it leads us to make decisions na dili sa sakto because our information is wrong, no? So we have to assume the worst for the business. So kung unsay pinakagamay nga income nga i-record nato ang pinakagamay, no? Or unsay pinakadako nga expenses, naman gud usahay na atong i-record ang expenses nga gamay lang because ay basin unya ako mag-record tag dako kaayo na this expenses gamay ang atong profit, no? But you know, these records are for our use kay para magamit nato to make sound decision. So dapat kung unsa ang expenses mo dito siya ang isulod nato regardless of the outcome, no? So mao na siya ang atong kuan. So conservatism. Objectivity meaning objective evidence, no? Kung unsa ang nakasulat dito sa ato ang official receipt, sumupod to ang dapat isulat nato sa atong libro. Kung unsa ang nakabutang sa atong purchases, mao sad to ang atong ibutang sa atong libro, no? So objectivity. And of course, the time period concept that each transaction will relate to a specific financial period. Example, for the month of, so mag-record ka for January 1 to January 31 so that you will know the result of your operation for January 1 to January 31. And after January 31, you will be able to identify, no, kung unsa ang results sa imong operations, and you will be able to make decisions on how to improve your operations. So, recognition principle. So, kanus-an nato i-recognize ang revenue kung naanay exchange of property of the things na atong gibaligya, no? Or kanus-an nato i-recognize ang expenses kung ato nang nagamit. An example, no? Example, nagrenta ka and we pay advance rent. So, ang kanang advance rent is not yet an expense unless, no, ato na gid siyang nagamit. So, we reflect that one as advance rent, not rent expense. Okay, so another principle is matching principle. Meaning, i-match nato ang expenses kung kanus siya na-incur or i-match nato ang revenue kung kanus siya na-earn. Okay? So, these other kining principles, no, are cost principle, consistency, meaning kung yun sa nimog record last year, dapat the same way also because you cannot compare an apple and an orange. So, dapat consistent ka always. And materiality, full disclosure, meaning everything that concerns the business dapat i-reflect sa business. Aron, you can make informed decisions, no? So, kana siya. So, let's look at our financial statements. Okay. Kita ka unsa ang balance sheet, no, or what we call as the statement of financial position. So dinhi makita nato nga natay asset, natay liability ug natay owner's equity. So unsa may pasabot ana, no? The balance sheet shows you what you own. No? So unsa gipanag-iyahan? What is owned by the business, these are your assets. If you own something, meaning nangutang ka from a third party, then these are your liabilities or the debts you owe, no? And unsa meaning equity? Simply the difference between your asset and your liabilities. So if you look at our example, natay assets na 290. How much do we owe? Natay utang na 120. So what is the equity? We deduct the 120 from the 290. The 170 is what is left sa business after the business pays its liabilities. So, ana lang nga siya. So, muna siya ang simple na definition of the items, no, or elements that you see in the balance sheet or the statement of financial position. Another report in the statement, another report, no, sa imong financial statement is the income statement. Okay. If you have any questions, if maybe I'm too fast, you can please leave me a comment so that I'll be able to adjust the presentation. Income statement will show us our performance, no? So we have revenue or pila ang atong kita. We have the expenses or unsay gigastuhan sa business. And the net income is kung mas dako ang revenue kaysa expenses, no? So net income or a profit. Or a net loss is when the expenses or the total expenses for that period is greater than your revenue, no? So muna siya. Okay. So information lang na siya. And with that information, makahimo na din ka og decisions, no? So a business can either be organized as a proprietorship, or there is one owner, partnership where there are two or more owners, or a corporation where the business is able to raise funds through the investment of the shareholders, no? So ang proprietorship isa ang tag-iya. So siya isa ra ang tag-iya sa asset, isa ra ang tag-iya sa liabilities, no? So meaning when you say it's proprietorship, even the personal assets of the owner will be liable to pay for the liabilities of the business, no? So muna siya as a sole proprietorship. How about the partnership? A partnership is owned by two or more persons. Wala na gilimit sa balaod, no? There can be as many partners as 5, 10. Pero the very basic ingredient in a partnership is trust, because in a partnership natay gitawag nga mutual agency, or any partner can represent the whole business. So if you don't trust a person, dili na siya mahimo partner, no? So muna siya, a partnership is owned by two or more persons, and the partners share the management, no, and the decision making. So say if you don't want no another person looking into the business, no, and making decisions about the business, no, muna mo yung sole proprietorship na lang. But if you want to raise funds, no, and another person can give you that fund, and if you trust that person, then a partnership is advisable, no? So each partner is responsible for the debts of the business. So ang utang sa business will be divided between the partners. A corporation, on the other hand, is a business that operates under a government charter, no? So a corporation is recognized as a separate identity of the government, no? So owners are called shareholders or stockholders, no? Pero under the new corporation code, ang corporation pwede na siyang isa lang ang tag-iya, or what we call as the one-person corporation, or the OPC, no? So, murag yapon siya sole proprietorship, but the business is recognized as a corporation, no? So, ako, sometimes we advise the clients na to organize as a one-person corporation, especially kung ang imong katransact are corporations as well, so that dili pod at risk no ang personal assets nimo should the business encounter problems later on. So muna siya. Okay, so in a financial statement, ang business is divided into accounts. So a business divides its accounts into 5 classes. We have the assets, liabilities, owner's equity, revenues, and expenses. As I've said earlier, muna siyang fixed of value owned by the business. It includes cash, building, equipment, merchandise for sale. Liabilities includes no those debts owing to third parties, no, includes credit card liabilities of the business, bank loans, and mortgages, no. And owner's equity, this is what is left of the business after it pays all its liability, no? So revenues, muna siya ang kita, sale of goods and of services to customers. And a business can have more than one kind of revenue. So for example, if you are engaged in laundry, no? So pwede kang, example, na kay revenue sa imuhang laundry business. Now, if your laundry business also kay nagpa-5-6 ka, which is not allowed, you know, nga na. So, pwede po nga different kinds of revenue in a business. Expenses, these are the cost of operating the business. We know that for a business to run, we have to spend. So, the cost of operating the business, ang tawag na taan expenses. This includes rent, salaries, electricity, na atong gibayaran sa atong negosyo, water sa atong business, and advertising, etc. Okay? So, asset versus expenses. So, when we say asset, okay, ang asset, for example, magpalit ka og equipment. Say, washing machine para sa imong business. Okay? Is this considered as an asset or an expense? So, ang asset kung magamit pa nimo ang benefit kay this can extend for more than 1 year, considered siya as asset. Pero kung ang imong gigasto, ang benefit lang niya kay 1 year or less, expense na siya. So, an example, katong washing machine, of course, dili man na siya maguba within 1 year. So, we know that the estimated useful life of your washing machine can extend up to 3 to 5 years, no? So, pagpalit mo sa washing machine, it is not considered as an expense, but it is considered as an asset. So, unsa may expense ani? The wear and tear, no? Ang tawag nato ana depreciation or depreciation expense, mo dayon na ang ato ang expense, no? From buying the washing machine. So, muna siya. So, kung ang atong gipamalit, no, mo-extend to more than 1 year ang benefit, consider nato as asset. Pero kung ang iyang benefit is 1 year or less lang, pwede nato siya i-expense. Another example, na kay repairs sa imuhang sakyanan sa business. If these repairs, for example, na kay gidugang sa imuhang sakyanan, aron mo extend pa ang useful life of the business, then kana siya nga gasto is considered as an asset. Pero kung ang repairs is ma-benefit lang nimo good for 1 year or less, automatic expense na ang gasto ana nga repairs. Okay? So, okay. So how do we start a bookkeeping system? Okay? So, ato ang ilista. Unsay gipanag-iyahan sa business? Unsa pod ang utang or what does the business owe? Okay? And how much is the business worth, no, after paying all its liabilities? So, for example, no, ato ang nag-keep track na naay kwarta ang business na 10,000. Okay? And then, naapoy kwarta ang business in the bank. So those are what is owned by the business. And tanawon nimo imong business unsay naa dinha. You have the car of the business or the transportation equipment or delivery equipment of the business. Na kay mga papel o ballpen nga gigamit sa business. Then we have your supplies. Na kay goods intended to be sold. So muna siya ang imuhang merchandise. Okay? So, muna siya. Kung naa kay mga lingkuranan nga gamiton para sa imuhang mga customers or clients, so those are considered as furniture and fixtures, no? So, na kay personal computer of the business, na kay laptop, so that's considered as office equipment, no? So, muna siya ang kung i-add up na nimo tanan, then that's the total asset or what is owned by the business. Okay? So, what is owed? Kung nakay utang sa imo suppliers, that's accounts payable. No? Kung nakay utang sa bank or a third party, that's loan payable or loans payable. Okay? So if you look at the business, total niya gipanag-iyahan is 280. Total niya nga utang is 150. Okay? So what is the business worth? We simply deduct ang iyang utang, 150 from 280. The business's equity is 130, or what is the business worth? Okay? So, asset minus liability, mo na siya ang equity o unsay mabilin. Okay. So, a balance sheet or the statement of financial position tells you what is owned, unsay gipanag-iyahan, what is owed, unsay utang, and how much is left sa business after bayaran ang tanan utang. So, kung atong plastaron ang balance sheet earlier sa atong example, so, muna siya ang ato ang itsura sa balance sheet. Okay? Naa sa left side nato makita ang asset, no? So, ang asset unsay gipanag-iyahan. On the right side, we will be able to see the liabilities and the equity of the business. Now, nanong in-ani ang itsura? Naay intention or naay purpose nga in-ani ang itsura. We see that the asset, total asset, is equal to your total liabilities and your total equity. Tama? Total asset is 280. Okay? So, 280 ang total asset. Kung i-add mo si liabilities, 150, and your equity, your total liabilities and equity is 280,000 also. So if you look at this one, balance ang imong left side and your right side. So if your bookkeeper, if you have one, or if your records will give you a balance sheet na dili pareho ang total amount in your left side and your right side, then something is wrong with your recording, no? So dapat pareho din ang amount sa imong left and sa right hand. Unsay significance ani nga presentation? Your total asset, which includes your cash, your inventory, your supplies, your furniture and fixtures, your equipment, these are all financed by utang, nangutang ka equipment, nangutang ka sa supplier, or either from your own personal investment, no? So, ang imo di ay tanan, all the business owns or all that the business owns are coming from liabilities and equity. So, muna ini-ani ay iyang itsura. Okay? So, the balance sheet tells you about your position or financial position. Sumutan na ka, pila ba akong ipanag-iyahan? So you get your total asset at 280. Pila ba ang akong utang? How much do I owe? So your balance sheet tells you that you owe 150,000 to both your supplier and to another third party or financial institution perhaps. No? And then, pilay mabilin kung bayran sa ako ang business ang akong utang. So that's 130. Okay, so that's your equity. So again, no? Ang atong assets, we divide this one into current assets and non-current assets. When we say current assets, dali ra ni siya ma-take benefit, makuha na to ang benefit within 1 year or less, current asset. Non-current asset, meaning ang benefit ani, makuha na to for more than 1 year. So an example, ang utang sa imong customers, of course, dili man na pwede more than 1 year, otherwise mag-suffer ang business, no? So accounts receivable, that's a current asset. Pero ang imuhang computer equipment, which you can take benefit of, no, for more than 1 year, so consider na siya as non-current asset. Okay? So muna siya ang meaning ng how we classify our assets into current and non-current asset. How about liabilities? So muna siya ang utang of the business. And it is further, no, classified into current liabilities or non-current liabilities. What do we mean by that? When we say current liabilities, it has to be settled with third parties within 1 year or less. How about non-current liabilities? Kung it can be settled for more than 1 year. So, makita ninyo, no, if there is proper na recording of the transactions of the business, na kay current, na kay non-current, then you will be able to make sound decisions na, ay, hindi ko pwede nga maggasto og dako because I have something due within 3 months or I have something due at the end of the year. So it enables you to plan your activities, no? Because ang records nimo are segregated, no? And kung sa tawag ani labeled so that dili ka masayop sa imong decisions. Okay? So equity is the amount that remains after should the business face its current and non-current liabilities. So these are examples, no, of items that you can see in your balance sheet. No? So anyway, I will be sharing this presentation kay para if you want to go back, no, if you have perhaps your financial position that your financial statements that was prepared for you, inyong balikan, and then you will be able to identify na dayon, no, based on what we have learned this morning. So revenue and expenses, no, so these are the actual, no, inflows, no, or what is earned by the business, and expense is decreases in equity that results from operations. So to get the profit or loss, we simply deduct our expenses from our revenue. Okay, so let's skip that one. You can go back to that later, no, so that we will be able to discuss some things. Okay, natay gitawag nga manual accounting system, no? So when we say manual accounting system, okay, we write everything down. So importante kayo na, just like, you know, when we make our diaries, no, magtigong tagdaghan sticker ni Starbucks or ni Coffee Bean so that we'll be able to buy, no, the diary ni planner ni Starbucks or ni Coffee Bean because we want to record everything. Same goes with our business. So dapat na gyud tay recording of what happened every day or every day nga naay transaction ang business. So natay gitawag nga mga ledgers, general ledger, subsidiary ledger, no? What the BIR requires from small businesses or startup businesses is simply to prepare the um, general ledger, no? So duha ka book ledgers, that's cash receipts and cash disbursements. If you're going to divide pa yun, no, mo nang natay subsidiary ledger, so pwedeng maupat or malima ang atong libro. So pwedeng bungkago na to ang atong cash receipts. We further classify it into sales, no, and receivables. So sales is a subsidiary ledger, no? So meaning a number of individual accounts with a common characteristic. So in a sales na subsidiary ledger, makita nato dito tagsa-tagsa ang official receipt or perhaps ang record sa mga customers nimo, no, na nabaligyaan nimo for that period. Okay? Subsidiary ledger perhaps for accounts receivable. So nakay record sa individual customers nga nagkautang sa imo and when they paid, no, o pilay na bilin sa ilahang utang sa inyo ha. So that's subsidiary ledger, no? So two common subsidiary ledgers, we have the accounts receivable and the accounts payable. Okay? So I'll give you an example, no, unsay itsura. Pwede po mga yung isa ka libro. Thank you, Dad. Libro. Di ka nang, kuan lang, kanang libro. Example lang, yes. Okay. Sa business, okay. So yes, my husband is here to lend support. So muna siya ang itsura, no, of this is an 8-column nga notebook. So this can be used to record the transactions of the business. Okay? So buhaton nato dinhi, of course, dinhi nato ma-record, no? For example, when we journalize kasi we have to record everything that transpired in the business on a parang sunod-sunod nga time, no? Ana siya. So, January 1, January 2, January 3, unsay mga transactions na nahitabo. So, example, if this is your sales, no, na subsidiary ledger, then you'll be able to put in here the official receipt numbers, sa inyong gi-issue nga official receipt, how much, no, ang nasa inyong official receipt. So with this, nakay na-journalize mo, ma-record mo ang day-to-day transactions, no, sales transactions of the business. You can also have another one of this for your accounts receivable. Now, if you want to keep track of the how much, no, each customer owes you, no, so ang iyahang transactions of the business transactions of your customers. Or if you want to keep track of the transactions nimo with your suppliers. So, nangutang ka karon, nagbayad ka. So with this notebook, you will be able to identify right away how much you owe to a specific supplier, how much a customer owes, no, you at a certain time, no, kay nakik-track man nimo. Now, for BIR purposes, which will be explained to you, no, kung ano, registered ta with BIR, every year, this duha ka a minimum niya nga requirement, no, the cash in and the cash out, no, or cash receipts book and the cash disbursement book. Cash receipts book includes everything that the business received, no, from January 1 to December 31 of that period. Now, para dili ta ma-penalize ni BIR, these cash disbursement and cash receipts book should have excuse me, the stamp, no, from the record section of BIR, no, otherwise ma-penalize. And don't worry because kung example dili gid siya mahurot, then ang nasa revenue regulation or sa regulation sa BIR is that patatakan lang nimo kung kano sa siya nag-end ana nga year, and you can continue to use it until such time as mahurot nimo ang isa ka libro. But duha ang minimum nga requirement, no, isa ka cash receipts o isa ka cash disbursement or receipts or disbursement of the business. So this is an example of ledger and subsidiary ledgers, no? So when we say general ledger, we have one account for accounts receivable and then subsidiary for specific customers. Isa ka general ledger for accounts receivable, accounts payable, and ato siyang i-break down specifically for each of the suppliers. Kung ing-ana ka detalye, no, ang ato ang recording. Okay? So we have special journals, no? Excuse me. Special journals includes, no, kaning purchases journal and cash payments journal, revenue journal, and cash receipts journal. Excuse me. So if you want to kanang classify ang revenue journal, dinha nimo isulod ang imong kita nga wala pa nabayaran sa imong customers or sales on account. No? Ang cash receipts journal, dinha nimo i-record ang tanan na dawat nimo nga cash. How about purchases journal? Dinha nimo i-record ang tanan nimo nga gipamalit on account or purchase on account. Cash payments journal, dinha nimo isulod ang tanan nga imuhang gibayran nga imong mga purchases, no? So if you want to be very specific, no, sa asa siya padulong. So revenue journal is used for recording fees earned on account. Okay? Earlier ingon ko isa ka cash receipts book. So the cash receipts book, no, isulod nimo tanan nga nisulod nga money, no? Either cash sales or cash collections. So dito nimo isulod sa cash receipts book. Pero if you want to be very specific sa imo recording, pwede nimo bulagon, no? Cash receipts meaning katong yung tanan na dawat. Ang katong tanan sales nga sales on account, pwede nimo siya isulod in another notebook which is called the revenue journal. Okay? So, muna siyang example, no? So, we see here nga ang transactions kay in chronological order, no? And then it contains the invoice number para sa yun ang tracing with your documents, no? Or paper trail. Then, kinsa ang specific nga mga customer nga nagpalit sa imo on account and how much, no? So by this, you will be able to identify as of March 31 nga naakay kolektahonon nga 9,600 from these specific customers, no? So ana siya. So when you say revenue journal posting, okay, so technical na kayo siya, no? We can use an accounting system for this, pero at least ipakita na ko sa inyo nga asa gipadulong, no? So revenue journal, makita na nimo dinhi sa imong general ledger nga total amount is 9,600. Kung gusto ka i-break down, makita nimo sa general sa revenue journal kinsay specific nga mga customers. And then if you want to make subsidiary ledger, pwede ra gani index card. So for each of the customer, you will create a subsidiary ledger aron ma-identify ang transactions of each customer, and you'll be able to get information, no, at a real time. So cash receipts journal, tanan nga nadawat nimo sa imong business, no? So this includes, no, kaning cash payments and collections, no? Okay. Purchases journals, as I've said earlier, no, kung mapalit ka on account. Okay? And cash payments journal kung naakay gipambayran. Okay? So, say tips sa ato no? Put events like major computer upgrade on the calendar a year in advance. Meaning we plan ahead so that we will be able to prepare, no, for these major expenses. One advice nato is that, for example, nagpalit ta og washing machine para sa atong business worth, say, 100,000. Now, we know that the washing machine will have an estimated useful life, or we can make use of it for like 3 to 5 years. So, i-divide na nato ng 100,000 by 5 years. So, na 20,000 per year. Now, ang tawag nato sa accounting na depreciation expense. But that's an expense nga walay cash outflow. So, what do? Kanang 20,000 we set aside on a separate account so that pag abot sa 5 years, the 20,000 mahimo na siyang 100,000. kung maguba na ang imong washing machine, you have already prepared 100,000 for you to buy another machine to replace no ang katong old ni mga washing machine. So that's financing no or kaning financial management no nga practice no in the business. So meaning all the major expenses dapat hindi na siyang andaman. Acknowledge the seasonal ups and downs, something many entrepreneurs are reluctant to do. You also have to keep track of your expenses, no? Sometimes swipe ka lang swipe sa imong credit card, wala nimo gi-record, wala ka kabalo sa imong gipambayaran, and you wouldn't be able to identify nga you have been spending a lot for your business na di no? So muna you have to keep track of your expenses. Okay? Adopt a system for keeping your financial activities straight, whether it's a notebook that you use, no? Or you can make use of really what is required no by our regulatory agencies, no? So natay notebook na mo gyud imo ha dito gyud mo i-record tanan. So we have to be very say tawag ani organized no pag abot sa atong recording. Or if you can afford later on, no, you can use an Excel spreadsheet or an accounting software. Example, QuickBooks, no, or isa pa din ha. So, kailangan gyud nga ma-record nimo ang tanan deposits correctly, no? So, usahay ma-record nga deposits pero dili di ito para sa business, no? Or kanang example, you have one bank account para sa imong personal o sa imong business. So you have to be able to identify what's for the business o unsay para sa personal, no? So ano siya. Set aside money for paying taxes. That's very important, no? Unlike sa compensation nga, naatay withholding so that at the end of the year, an employee does not have to worry about his tax liabilities, no? But for the business, ikaw ang mag-manage, ana. So, dili gid dapat nimo ibitingnon nga, ay, April pa of the next year ang due date sa akong taxes. Paabot sa April, kadyo lang, dako, di kay akong dapat bayaran. So, mangutang ka, no, for taxes. So, you have to systematically put a portion of money aside throughout the year for taxes. And then take note of tax deadline. As I've said earlier, madugo for the business if you miss one deadline, even for 1 day. So, dako ka ay mag-suffer na ang business, ana, no? Keep a close eye on your invoices. So, if you cannot keep track of this, you are taking charge of the business. At least siguro your wife or your kid, no, or if you have nana kay anak nga who can do recording, assign someone in your business to track your billing, no? Then put a process in place for issuing a second invoice or making a phone call and perhaps levying penalties such as extra fees at certain deadlines, no? So importante that we have to have a good relationship with our suppliers aron continuous smooth ang flow sa ato ang pag-transact sa business. Okay? So, with that, no, we will have to learn or we will learn how to manage our cash flow. We understand that cash is very important sa business. So, unsaon nato ni siya pag-manage? No? So, we understand already no ang mga elements in the financial statements, unsay purpose nila and what it would help you or how it would help you make informed decisions. Like for example, ako kayo ang nakabutang nimo sa accounts receivable. Example, nakay asset ng 100,000, uy, good. Pero sa 100,000, 70,000 day ani kay inventory, meaning goods nga wala pa nabaligya. So is that good or bad? So syempre, it would inform you nga kadjut lang, hinay di ay ang akong pag-convert sa ako ang inventory into sales. Kinahanglan i-improve na ako akong sales strategies. Meaning, your financial statements will already give you indicators, no, of things that needs to be improved, of things that needs to be changed, or of things that needs to be continued so it is giving you good results, no? So financial statements are reports about the business's financial health and cash flows. So 3 basic financial statements, we learned that earlier, no? So cash flow. So balance of cash received less the amount of cash paid out over a period of time. So muna ang nasa statement of cash flow. Cash in minus cash out as of that date. Okay? And then, moving cash in or cash out of the business. Okay, so muna siya as a cash flow. So sa projection, how can a cash flow projection help? So para ma-identify nimo unsay sales goals, ug unsay expenses nimo, kung na kay tawag nato ana sales projection o expenses na projection aron maandaman. And you have to get that break-even point, no? Plan equipment purchases for replacement or expansion. Determine cash needed to purchase inventory for seasonal cycles. So makita na to tanan sa cash flow projection. Kung sa pa'y importansya sa cash flow, you would be able to track liquidity, no? It helps you the need for financing. So kailangan di ko mangutang kay na ko due within 3 months. No? It shows lenders your ability to repay the loan. So banks would need your cash flow projection to assure them that the amount nga imong giutang kay mabayaran nimo at the specified nga payment periods, no? So, how do we increase ang pagsulod sa kwarta? Cash flow. So, increase the number of items sold, increase the price, no? Reduce expenses, change the timing of expenses. So, for example, kung magbayad ka on a cash basis, perhaps you can negotiate for 30 day, no, nga kanang payment of your purchases, no? So timing of expenses. Save money to have sufficient opening cash to get through startup period. Okay? Obtain sources of cash other than sales. So pwede line of credit, no? Pwede ka mag-apply ana o credit line with financial institutions, no? So, reduce changes of timing of owner's drawings. So, for example, dili sa ka magkuha og kwarta from the business so that ma-allow ang business to make use of that money to grow, no? So, buy inventory from vendor at lower price, of course, pero without sacrificing the quality of the goods that you intend to give to your customers. Obtain credit from vendor or establish policy to get paid sooner by customers. Nga naman, the faster nga mosulod ang money, the better because you can make use this one for the operations of the business. So the profit and loss statement tells us the performance of the business, and it tells us how successfully the buying and selling process has been managed. So P&L is the most important report from your accounting software program or from your recording, no? So muna siya ang formula earlier. So, net profit pays for owners' drawings or personal use of money sa business, future expansion, principal loan payment, no, and interest as well, and income taxes. So, to simplify managing cash flows, meaning i-delay ang cash outlay as long as possible while encouraging your customers to pay it as quickly. So, the faster mo sulod, but i-delay ang paggawas as much as possible without sacrificing your relationship with your suppliers. At, no, syempre, dili pasabot delaying outlay nga dili ka magbayad no on time, no, but if you can negotiate siguro a term, no, kay para magamit pa niyo og grolyo ang imong cash na nakolekta from your customers, then that's a good, no, cash management for the business. Okay? So, common cause of business failure na ay cash crisis, no? Business can be earning a profit and be forced to close because it runs out of cash, no? From a study, it says 67% of small business owners have at least occasional problems managing cash flow, no? So, unsa man ang cash flow cycle, tan-awon nato ning ato example. Mutawag ka sa supplier, mag-order ka, na ay 14 days as ay nato madawat. And then from day 1, na ay 40 days to pay for invoices. Say, for example, naka-negotiate pa nga mautang nato. From the payment of invoice to the sale of goods na ay 178 days, pasabot, taman sa nagbayad tag cash, 178 days pa nga mabayaran, nga mabaligya nato ang atong goods. And then na ay from napay 50 days no para makolekta nato. So makita nato dinhi sa cycle kanus ang mogawas ang kwarta, kanus ang mosulod ang kwarta. So with this cash flow cycle, we can now identify kadut lang dili kaya sa akong finances nga naapay 50 days ang customer nga mobayad. So dapat within 5 days, 15 days, ana lang. Or makita nato na siguro it's not possible for my cash flow cycle nga mubayad ko right away sa akong suppliers. Kailangan sa diin nako nga mohangyo ko na maka-extend ko sa ako ang payment terms so that I will be able to collect the money first and then ako nga mabayad sa akong suppliers. No? So we have to understand our cash flow cycle so that dili pud pa matuok no sa ato ang business. So businesses track cash flow either weekly, monthly, or quarterly. So importante din kayo na we keep track of our cash, no? So question, is positive cash flow good or is negative cash flow good? No? Either of this is good as long as salamat kayo, ma'am. Thank you so much. Okay, we have a visitor. Okay, so positive cash flow or negative cash flow is good as long as na-anticipate. Pero negative cash flow nga wala ka nakaandam, that's bad. Positive cash flow nga wala ka kasabot asa nigikan is also bad, no? Because again, we have to understand asa nigikan, no? So if we are, for as long as kani nga cash flow kay atong na-preparean, kani na cash flow na sabtan nato asa gikan, then positive or negative cash flow can neither be good, no, or can either be good also, no? So kana siya. So profit does not equal good cash flow, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, no? So ibutang ta na ginansya lagi ta pero dugay kay ka mangolekta sa imong customer, ay ang imong supplier paspas kay mangolekta sa imo, so it's also bad because it will lead you to incurring a lot of debt, no, which is really pud windot for the business. So find out also asa inyong break-even point so that you'll be able to prepare asa taman nga pwede pa ka kumbaga ma-extend nimo ang capacity sa imong business. So it says here, no, nice saying nga you cannot control what you do not measure. So importante gud kaayo nga nagkikay proper nga recording of your cash so that you will be able to control, no? For example, kung saan mo pag-control sa mga expenses kung wala ka kabalo kano sa siya bayaran or how much to pay, or kung saan mo pag-control sa imong mga bayaran if you don't know when you can collect the money or how much you're able to collect, no? So first you have to have that recording, no, so that ma-measure nimo ang capacity of the business. With that recording also, no, you would be able to identify, would I do short-term financing or would I do long-term financing? Short-term financing, okay siya, pero remember, bayran siya nimo within 1 year. Long-term financing, dugay na ko bayran, pero dako kaayo ang akong interest. So now you can balance, no, unsay kaya sa imong business and where maka-benefit ang imong business. So financing is getting the money you need to start, to operate, or to grow your business. So, equity financing, whether unsa may kailangan sa akong business, ako abang personal or mangutang lang sa ako, no? So, financing working capital versus financing fixed asset, no? So, saan ako pag-finance sa akong fixed asset? Ako ba personally akong i-invest or mangutang kong sakyanan, no? So, ana siya. So, we have to identify that one, no? So, what are the do's and don'ts for small business financing? You have to invest your own money. So, nakita equity, no? Next, earn the right to borrow. So, syempre, we have to show also our creditors, no? Unsay capacity nato to pay. So, we have to earn that right to borrow. So, we do not borrow kung dili makaya o bayad sa business, no? So, kananglan na makita nato na kung asa lang taman ang business makabayad. Show profitability. Understand and keep working capital. Be lean on fixed asset. No? So do not buy a lot of equipment na mahimo siyang idle because again, it's going to be an idle asset and sayang lang, no? So match sources and uses of funds. So you have to understand your financial statement sama sa akong giingon ganina, no? Unsay pasabot atong mga asset, unsay pasabot atong mga different elements, no, sa imong financial statement. Understand collateral option, understand the risk and cost for loan types. Then, shop around. So, dili lang, for example, mayroon sa imong isa ka financial institution na, yes, ali, dili, we will make it easier for you. So, take note, basin niya og dako kag interest, no? So, ano siya, you can shop around and see what is the best offer that you can get from the financial institutions and get expert advice if needed, no? So, what are the steps, no, to get ready for a loan? First, dapat na kay business plan. The business plan, that is your projected balance sheet, projected income statement, projected cash flow, so that the financial institution will be able to assess the capacity to pay off the business, no? And the financial institution would be able to decide how much the business really needs, no? So, Ana, on your part as well, you are prepared kung kano sa bayran, how much to pay, ana siya, so that you will also have a good relationship with your financial institutions. Next, know what you can afford. Dili kay offeran kag 1 million loan, diretso nimo, no, ambakan. No? Know also how much your business can afford to pay, no? Kay yes, mo utang lagi kag 1 million, dili din nimo kinahanglan, dili mabayaran sa business, and that would ruin your relationship with the financial institution, no? Or it might lead to business closure, which we do not want. Next, study your financial statement. So, dapat ato yung tunan unsay mga symptoms, no? So, we are the doctors of our business. Pangitaon nato kung unsa ang red lights, no? Or kanang unsay mga warning signs sa atong business. Check your credit report, establish collateral options, show your equity contribution, and research your financing options, no? So, common elements of a loan package. Remember, kung mag-loan ka, dapat may business plan, may business financial statements, current and historical, personal financial statements, and personal and business tax returns. Importante kayo na siya nga na kay ITR because usay ang tendency nato kay ibutan nato sa ITR nato ang pinakagamay nga income, wala ta kabalo nga the ITR is a basis for the financial institutions to assess and to decide how much or whether ipaloan ta. So of course we have to make sure na we are paying the right amount of taxes so that no qualified ta to incur a loan. What are the elements of a loan package? It includes also source and amount of equity contribution, credit report, collateral, purchase agreement, appraisal, contracts, and estimates, because sometimes the loans can be released to us on in tranches, depende kung paano saan nato kailangan. So what are needed, or what is the criteria for qualifying for a loan? Number one, good credit score, high equity contribution, repayment ability, which we can see in your projected cash flow, no, and loan to value ratio. So for startup business, unsay financing options. Number one, importante gid kay ang credit, equity, no, equity. So it's either personal or mangutang ka sa imong relatives, at least wala pay interest, no, or gamay lang ang interest, no. Sweat equity. So if you can prevent, or if you can stop first hiring people na mabuhat pa nimo on your own, buhat ta sa siya. Ang mudagan ang imong business, makita nimo ang pag-run sa business nga ma-maximize pa nimo, no, without, kanang spending too much. And then business credit card, and of course your family members, no. When you look for your loan, you can go to banks or regional lending organizations, or si b.i.t.e.s also has kanang small business corporation who can help, no? Especially if you are registered under the BMBE, or Barangay Micro-Based Enterprise, no? So you can inquire from b.i.t.e.s how you can be qualified, no? How you can qualify sa business sa barangay BMBE, Barangay Micro-Based Enterprise. Para you can of course take advantage of the benefits like dili sa ka magbayad og income taxes, no, but you have to pay the business taxes, or all other kanang benefits like kanang na ay pautang, no, or you need loans, then maka-refer sila sa imo sa financial institution, no, from b.i.t.e.s. So what are the key points to remember? Financing is getting the money you need to start, to operate and grow your business. So you start with a budget. So that dapat na kay sakto na plano. Remember, the the plan is very important, no? Ngayon ka business plan, kakapoy ba kaya ng business plan? But it is very important because it will be your guide and it will be your yardstick to identify whether your strategies are working or not, or asa ka mo improve or asa ka dapat mo change. So you start with a budget. Sound bookkeeping is the basis for all financial management. So dapat religious gid nimo na i-record unsay ni sulod, unsay ni gawas, where did it come from, and where your money will go. And then understand the items in the three statements, no? Separate personal and business records and funds. Ayaw iusa ang record sa imong personal o sa imong business, no? So you also understand the factors that affect your ability to get a loan. Okay? So, naay pangutana ang ato ang mga participants, ang ato mga incubatees or clarifications. What would you like to ask? Siguro later on, no, when we have our coaching, I hope you'll be able to warm up and siguro I might be able to see your faces, no, and be able to connect these names with faces and be able to get to know you so that you'll be able to interact, no. So questions, clarifications?
Si Derek ba ang address niya kaya masasabi?
So, Miss Sor?
Okay, so is Rachel around? We have a question in the chat group.
Yes po. Okay po.
Okay, ma'am. I'll just read the question for you, Miss Marie. Okay, hello, ma'am.
Yes po, thank you so much po. Hello.
Miss Alex is asking, pwede mag-ask for a sample ng cash flow statement?
Cash flow statement. Apo. I think this is included here, no, as a sample cash flow statement.
Yes, Miss Alex, we can.
Yes po. I have a sample cash flow na statement here. I'll be sharing this presentation with you. You can muna siya ang sample na cash flow statement. Okay. So, natay sources of cash, natay operating use of cash, then you have the net cash, okay? And then you have the ending cash at the end of the year, no? I can also give you another sample, no? Kanin, this one is direct method. Napit tayo gitawag na indirect method. Pero sa direct method, mas dali na ito masabtan mo nga, natay beginning cash, and then how much ang cash sales sa month 1, month 2, and sa year. How much ang collections, no? So ma-identify na to nga month 1 walay collection pero sa month 2 na. Pero na breakdown, no, ang asa gikan ang cash. And then if you look at operating uses of cash, ma-breakdown pud kung pila ang dapat bayaran sa contract labor, sa wages, payroll, taxes, and ma-specify nato kung kanusa siya dapat, no, on a monthly basis. So with that, your sources of cash minus your operating uses of cash, no, makita nimo dinhi ang net cash. Then makita nimo ang debt service or pila ang giutang nimo, pila ang owner's drawings, no? And then makita nimo ang ending cash, meaning sources of cash minus operating uses plus giutang nimo, meaning masulod sa imo ha from your kanang giutang sa bangko or from third parties. And then pilay gipambayaran nimo sa imong inventory purchases, equipment purchases, no? Pilay bayad nimo sa imong gipang loan, okay? And then with that, kung unsay mabilin sa imo at the end of the period. So detailed ni siya para ma-monitor gid nimo when magsulod asa gikan, when mo gawas asa gikan, pilay mabilin sa imo at the end of the period. So I hope that answers your question, Miss Alex.
Thank you, Miss Marie. I think we can dwell more on that later since we are having a one-on-one coach.
Yes
Okay.
po,
So,
opo. I'll wait for that, opo.
yes. So in that regard, incubatees, I highly recommend you present bookkeeping logs or financial statement you have to maximize your time later. Okay. So, mind you guys, we are very lucky to have Miss Marie with us. So she is not just a proprietor at the Emata Accounting and Consultancy Services. She is also an accredited mentor of Go Negosyo Kapatid Mentor ME Program and Philippine Center for Entrepreneurship in partnership with Cagayan de Oro Negosyo Center and DTI Misamis Oriental. Okay, so I think we can. Do we have any other question?
Hello, hi Richel.
Hello, yes po.
Yes, proceed, Bag.
Hi, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning po.
Yes,
Yes po.
I'm not sure if this is covered under your presentation, pero I'm curious lang because we encountered something about convertible notes. Can you,
Okay.
I'm not sure this is covered, pero since this is also part of accounting, maybe you can shed some light regarding this.
Unsa nga transaction specifically for convertible notes, sir?
Like for investment, naman ko'y gipangutana ang prospect investor kung unsay kuan sa iyang investment. So is it in the form of convertible notes? So nawindang lang ko because I don't know how to answer.
Okay. He wants to invest sa imuhang business tapos gusto
Yes.
siya convertible notes.
Yes.
So, ang gusto niya, sir, is return sa iyahang investment sa imuha. When you say convertible notes, no, instead na ibayad nimo sa iyaha kay cash, no, at certain periods, when you say convertible notes, I think mura og mahimo siyang sige lang, anyway, we will be meeting with each other later, no. I will look into this, no, kung I'm not sure kung convertible notes refers to kung i-convert ba niya into ownership from you or convertible notes kanang kanus-an niya i-collect, no, from you ang yang return on his investment, no. So
Okay, sige.
this is return on the investment from you. Pero I will take note of that, sir, and we can discuss fully about convertible notes, no. So basically when we say notes, no, kanang nagpautang siya sa imuha, so you have notes payable, no. And then ang sa iyahan na part is maybe mag-negotiate mo how the repayment process can be done, no, or how the repayment can be transacted no sa imuha between you and the investor. So pwedeng convertible notes, pero usually manggod ang atong transaction usually kay mangutang ta from so somebody is going to invest in us. So unsa man ni siya, is this kining pautang nga naay fixed interest, or is this kining investment nga later on mahimo siyang partner or mahimo siyang owner, also co-owner of the business. So kana siya ang tan-awon nato pod also later, no, kay tan-awon nato ang contract, no, because it will really affect our business. Kay say convertible notes dahil mahimo na dayon siyang owner sa imong business nga fixed ang iyang makuha nga rate, no, sa portion sa imong profit, then you have to consider kay na kay ka-share sa imong profit. Dili lang siya ingon nga mura og utang nga bayaran lang nimo, but he becomes part, no, sa ownership sa business. So that's something that you need to consider as well.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Siguro later magkuan ako lang i-detail ang katong kuan requirement.
Yes po, apo. Maybe we can look into the contract unsa gyud ang iyahang gusto nga kuhaon sa imo, mahimo ba siyang owner later on, or is this kaning long term lang nga kanang iuli nimo sa iyaha, murag kumbaga loans payable nimo to that person.
Okay, ma'am, thank you.
Okay, sige po, you're welcome, sir.
So again, I do agree with Miss Alex, Miss Marie. So you have all the time later for your questions. So 30 minutes niya siya masolo. So again, thank you, Miss Marie. See you later. Okay, I'll give back the floor to Miss Shore.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Mary. So before we head on to our next speaker, we'd like to do a group photo first, virtual group photo with Miss Mary and Sir EJ para po sa documentation. I'd like to ask everyone to turn on their cameras. So you can take a screenshot of the screen. Right? Screenshot. Mm. All right. On three. One, two, three. Smile. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mama Lee. Dagan kay ko natun ako kami actually natunan. So, I like to remind everyone that your schedule for the mentoring this afternoon are the following: 1 p.m. si Shift Tech, 1:45 ihatid, 2:15 Yes Tech, 3 o'clock bakante pa siya, so we'll proceed to 3:45 with Checkmate, 4:30 with Dirt Bag, and 6 p.m. with Piso hand sanitizer. All right, thank you very much. And now I'll share my screen so we can um, introduce our next speaker. Hi, I'm sorry. So the next part of our fire session is a talk by EJ Arboleda, and I'm pretty sure he and his startup sound familiar to you because they're pretty active in the Philippine startup community. EJ is the CEO and co-founder of Taxumo, the country's leading online tax compliance solution. EJ has 16 years of experience in IT, mainly in the fields of web and desktop development, project management, and service management before going full-time for Taxumo. Taxumo is a multi-awarded Filipino startup that helps more than 35,000 professionals and MSMEs with their taxes. So even though this is the first time we're working together with Taxumo, Taxumo and I believe, were in the same talk in 2019, which was organized by IDEA and Iligan. So I talked
Oh.
about startup at that
Uh-huh.
time. And then, of course, Taxumo was there, talk about
Right.
taxation to the startups. Pero I didn't get the opportunity to personally meet you guys because I was basically in and out of
Sure.
Iligan just for the talk because of other appointments.
Right.
So again, I'm stoked that we finally got a chance to work again together in this time for the startups of CDO Bytes. So without further ado, I'll be handling the mic now to you, our second guest speaker, EJ
All
Arboleda.
right. Thank you so much, Shore. And good morning, everyone. Thank you, Miss Marie, for that excellent presentation earlier also. I also learned a lot of new things as well, no? Yeah, so good morning, everyone. Congratulations on being here. And kudos to you for taking a Saturday to learn how to do business better, basically, no? So it's always a good thing to see people trying to improve their craft, and I appreciate it that all of you are here. Maybe before we start, let me introduce a little bit about myself because I will be asking some questions from you as well. And to do that, let me just share my screen quickly. There we go. All right. Alrighty. So first of all, let me introduce. Sure. Thanks for that introduction. I will be introducing Taxumo now. No. So Taxumo is uh, uh, is basically a web application that helps entrepreneurs with their taxes. Okay, and that's the form that it is taking now. But really, Taxumo is driven by its mission, and our mission is we want to create a Philippines wherein people don't have to leave the country anymore in search of better opportunities. All right. And how we're doing that is by helping entrepreneurs become successful. We want them to create more employment opportunities for more people. That's one. And also, we want them to create a more competitive environment in terms of employment opportunities as well. No? The hope is that, and the plan, the vision that we have is that since it's now a lot easier uh, to 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 continue or to manage your business, then these opportunities will increase and people won't have to leave the country anymore. We're very much driven by that mission. And right now, the reason why we chose taxation as like the key focus for our web application is because taxes is usually like the biggest pain point when it comes to having a business here in the Philippines, no? Now, before we start, let me just remove my color management there. Okay, so before we start, I would want to invite everyone to go to this URL, menti.com, menti.com, and use the code indicated here. And then please answer that question. All right, I will be waiting for your answers. Please do so now. Open it on any browser. If you're on your phone, open it on a browser, or like switch to Chrome or whatever, to another browser. Open menti.com, enter that code. All right. How many startups are here currently pala? Okay, we have
I
one.
think, yeah, I think there are 5, 6 right
All
now.
right. Got it, got it. So yeah, so I would want to see at least 5 answers from everyone. Thank you for writing that down in the chat as well. Sure. All right. So we have two that are earning revenue. So what about the other 3 to 4? Where are we? I hope you're still here. I hope you're not um switched out na. Yeah, 3 are earning revenue. That's good. And one is expanding business. All right. Okay. Sige. So this is very interesting. I think you're in the latter stages of, not latter, but rather you're a bit more advanced than most startups, no, in the country, which is good. Now my next question for you is, please stay there, no. All right. So yeah, let's exit this one. All right. Now, my next question is this one. How old is your startup? Okay. 1 to 3 years. 6 months to 1 year. 6 months to 1 year. There we go. So fairly new, no? 6 months to 1 year, 1 to 3 years. That's good. That's good. Thank you, everyone, for participating in this quick survey and for answering these questions. The reason why I'm asking all of this is that I want to make sure that I cater my examples and well, thank you to two startups in the 1 to 3 year range. No, so I want to cater my examples and my conversations to you within the proper context that will make sense for you. No? So thank you for your answers. All right. So now let's move on to the presentation again. All right. So my objectives, or our objectives for this session, is that first of all, I want us to understand how registration works. Next, I want us to learn the basics of taxation, and I want us to understand the implications of taxation to your finance modeling. All right. First of all, let's start with registration. Okay. Before that, I did want to understand, is there anyone here that is not yet registered? Or do you all have registered businesses already?
I think I can answer for them. Some are not yet registered.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Thank you, sure. All right. So actually, I had a Mentimeter. I had a few questions on Menti also for that. But that was a lot faster now, so thank you, sure. So yeah, before that, let me go through the different stages of registration so that you understand how to legitimize your business now and what you're doing. So first of all, the first step when it comes to registering your business is you want to make sure you're registered either in DTI or in SEC. Essentially, you're registering your business name for the DTI, and for SEC, you're registering a new corporate entity. All right. Now, what's the difference? If you are registering as a sole proprietorship, you register with the DTI. If you are registering as a partnership or a corporation, which includes the one person corp, then you are registering in the SEC. Note that the minimum number of people required to register a corporation, but before it used to be a minimum of 5 people, right? They have since removed that, and we now have a minimum of just one person. Okay, so that's the one person corp. All right. So when you want to register with a DTI, it's pretty easy because it's completely online. No, so you just go to the DTI website and then you enter the following fields, and I'll go through the main ones. Everything else is self-explanatory, no, but the main ones that you have to understand are the following. The first is the territorial scope. So you have to choose whether you're selling to at the barangay level, or at the city level, or at the region level, or at national. Of course, the fees change depending on that scope that you choose. You also have to write the dominant name of your business. Most of the time, it is your name, and that's why you see a lot of businesses that don't have really creative names. Now, like for example, it's my name, EJ Arboleda Laundry, like that. No, it's this is the reason. And one of the big reasons also is that they want to make sure that there are not a lot of duplicate names. They have to make sure as much as possible that there are no duplicate names. Actually, no. So that's why usually what happens is that the name of the person or the proprietor is what gets chosen. The business name descriptor, it depends on the industry classification you choose. So, are you a retail store, or are you, let's say, a writer, stuff like that? No, so that would allow you to. This part will actually be based on the industry that you choose, and then there's a proposed business name that will be automatically generated, and from there they will check availability. Before, I'm not sure if they're as strict now given the situation with COVID, no, but before, they were fairly strict with this, because even if the website said that you have no duplicates, when you go to like when you have to pay, then they will actually say that, hey, your name is not allowed because, let's say, it's too generic. One example is my wife. Her business is Manila Workshops. She wasn't allowed to register the word Manila Workshops because it was too generic now. No, so that's an example. But anyways, I think it's a lot easier now. After you fill out all those fields, you within 7 days you have to pay for that DTI certificate. You do so via DTI Teller, which is in the DTI branch, GCash, Paymaya, Land Bank, or credit card or debit card. Afterwards, once that is paid, you will receive an email. No, so that's easy. The email will contain the certificate of business name registration attached. So just print that out, and that's it. Um, all right. Note that when you register with the DTI, it's just your business name. Okay. A lot of people think that registering a business means registering with the DTI. That is not enough. Hindi ka pa tapos. You also have to register with the LGU and the BIR. All right. So we move on to SEC registration. So these are the items that you have to make sure you submit when you register with the SEC. You have to submit a cover sheet, your articles of incorporation, the bylaws of your corporation, a treasurer's affidavit, a bank certificate of deposit. I believe they have since removed this. Before, there's a minimum deposit that you have to have at the bank. I believe they've removed that, but it still depends on like what industry you're in. No? You also undertake an undertaking to change name. So basically, what this is saying is that you're telling the SEC that if you have, or if your registered name is a duplicate of someone else's, then I promise to change it. No, so inunahan ka na nila. But honestly, you can appeal that as well. And then you also have to have a form F100 if you are registering a corporation with more than 40% foreign ownership. Okay. Note, in terms of foreign ownership, there are some industries that have blacklists, meaning they cannot have any form of foreign ownership. For example, if you are a media or press outfit, yan. So there is you cannot have any foreign ownership there. So once you have all of those, you submit those to this website, http://csr.sec.gov.ph. You upload clear scans of the documents you prepared. You have to make sure that they are notarized. And the nice thing about it is that the SEC's YouTube channel, they actually have video instructions on how to use the platform now, which is great. After that, you claim your SEC certificate of registration from the SEC. As far as I know, this part is still manual, so you still have to go there. And you also receive what's called a unified registration record, which has your company's SSS, Pag-ibig, PhilHealth, and all of those other details. One thing to note when you're registering a company is that a company is a separate person in the eyes of the law. Okay? So it has its own tin, as opposed to when you're registering a sole proprietorship. A sole proprietorship is still you. Okay, that's the main difference. That is why when Miss Marie was talking about it a while ago, a corporation, it removes a lot of the risk from you, because when it comes to liabilities, it is the company as a person who is liable, and it is separate from the share owners or the owners of the company. Having said that, the other angle that you have to look at is compliance, because corporations have a ton more compliance requirements that you have to submit, as opposed to sole props, which in fairness the government is really trying to make easy naman din, no? So those are things you want to understand. I believe that you are startups and you're probably seeking investment. I heard a question a while ago about convertible notes. So those would make more sense as a corporation. No, it's impossible to raise as a sole proprietorship. So if you plan to raise, then corporation is the way to go. All right. The next registration, or the next agency that you have to go to in terms of registration, is your local government unit, your LGU. So how does that work? First of all, you have to get a barangay business clearance. Okay? So you have to provide a proof of residency or your ID to your barangay hall, and they will provide this. All right? Afterwards, once you have that, you go to the city hall now. What do you bring? You bring the DTI or SEC certificate that you have. You bring your barangay business clearance that you just got. You get a birth certificate. You get a marriage certificate. Note that you do not have to get married in order to start a business. Okay, if you are married, then bring a marriage certificate. Otherwise, you don't have one. You also have to provide a proof of billing that shows that a match for the address. Um, if you are renting the place, the business address, you have to provide a lease contract. Otherwise, you have to provide a title of property that you own the place. You have to provide pictures inside and outside of the business address. Um, you need to provide also two valid IDs, 3 copies each, and 2 copies of your 2x2s, no, 2x2 pictures. And once that's done, now depending on the LGU, the order varies, no. Once everything is done, you will get the following: you will get a mayor's permit. This is like the plate number that your business gets. You will get a fire safety inspection certificate, a sanitary permit, an environmental permit, a CTC or a community tax certificate for that corporation, and then a comprehensive general liability insurance. No, you also have to get that. Um, the LGUs normally have partners already that are like working within the LGU, so it's sort of built in when you get your permit as well. When I said a while ago that the order changes, so there are, for example, my experience is in Manila. So, for example, in Quezon City, the fire safety inspection needs to happen before they get you your business permit, as opposed to Valenzuela, wherein they will give you a business permit and then in a month they have to conduct all of the safety inspections. No, so which is pretty innovative of Valenzuela, if I may say so. Um, And then lastly, of course, there are two things you cannot avoid in life. It's death and taxes. No, so last thing you have to register is your BIR. So and this RDO transfer is particularly important if you're registering as a sole prop or as an individual. So we'll skip that. I believe a lot of your corporations anyway. But yeah, so the first thing you have to do is you have to fill out the following forms or provide the following. You have to give a form 1901, which you can download from the BIR website, a form 0605, which is like their generic payment form for anything you have to pay. You have to provide your DTI or SEC certificate. You have to provide a birth certificate, a marriage certificate, if applicable, a billing statement, two valid IDs, the same title of property. There is also a note here on copy of client or project contract. This is true, especially if what you're doing is something that the BAR cannot understand. And a lot of startups, they're doing things that are new. So normally, you have to explain things to them. So if normally this is for professionals because they have, let's say, search engine optimization contracts with their clients who are based abroad. So like the BAR doesn't understand what SEO is. So normally they would ask for a contract and see what happens there, and then they would put you in like miscellaneous activities anyway. But that's the BAR, So you also have to buy columnar ledgers. I would recommend that you buy your columnar ledgers before you go to the BAR. If you buy them outside, they cost maybe around, I think, 25 to 50 pesos per book. But if you buy them in the BAR, they will cost you at least 100 pesos. Okay? So, tubong lugaw sila dyan. So, bring your own. You also wanna fill out a form 1906, which is an authority to print receipts. So what you submit all of that to the RDO, the officer of the day in particular, and you provide a BAR. Sorry, you will get a form 2303 or a BAR COR. That is your certificate of registration. If you go to like businesses, they usually have this beside the cashier. They laminate it. It's that yellow sheet. You also will get your stamped books of accounts, and then you will also get an approved authority to print. Note, the authority to print, you use this to go to an authorized printer and have your official receipts printed out. Okay, you can opt for BAR printed receipts or BPRs, but I believe you can only use them for like the first 15 days of your business. So normally a lot of tiangges and like little stalls and bazaars, if the BIR goes around, they actually sell BIR printed receipts, no, because it's just that one day. And then once you have your ATP, you create a format of your official receipt. Normally, the authorized printers have a format that you can ask them to use, no. But what will happen is you provide that to them, and they will print 10 booklets. Okay. And then the last part is that those 10 booklets, you will again bring them to the BIR and they will stamp the first receipt and the last receipt of those 10 booklets. Okay. So with that, you are done. You are now registered. Okay. So once you're registered, compliance will now begin. All right. Okay. So, all right. So when it comes to compliance, this is the certificate of registration that I was talking about. No, this is the yellow sheet, the laminated yellow sheet. You will see the little image on the right. That is Taxumo's certificate of registration. And you will see that there are different tax types. There's income tax, value added tax, registration fee, and withholding tax. Now, what tax types are assigned to you will depend on the officer of the day. Okay, so it's normally if you are, let's say, a sole prop or a professional, you will get the one on the left, which only has income tax, registration fee, and instead of VAT, it says percentage tax monthly. Okay, so when people talk about taxes, first note, they do not just talk about the income tax that happens every April 15. You might have heard in the middle of the pandemic around May, DTI announced that, if you're not earning more than 250K, you don't have to register. The BIR got angry with them because that is true for income tax, no? And on certain iterations of income tax, to be honest. But you always have to pay like sales taxes. It's either VAT or percentage tax. Those do not have a minimum threshold. So the rule is, regardless of like of what type of business you are, whether you are an online seller, home-based business, whatever. The rule is you have to get registered. It doesn't matter if you're selling goods or if you're providing services, as long as you're earning from it, the rule is you have to get registered. Okay? But the thing to remember now is that what's assigned to you, those are the tax forms or the tax types that you will have to comply with. All right? So when you talk about one tip that I have, if you're not registered yet, try to ask the officer if you're getting registered to remove the withholding tax because it's added compliance. No, if you can get them to remove withholding tax, then great. But otherwise, you're gonna be stuck with it. It's a lot of work. It's monthly, and there are a lot of attachments you need to provide. Yeah, so if you can ask them to, hey sir, can I opt to not get withholding tax? Yan. All right. So let's go through the different types of taxes, the main types of taxes that I think you will encounter in your business. So let's start with income tax. So there are two types of taxes, especially for individuals, no, the graduated income tax rate and the 8% flat income tax rate. I will be skipping this because this is for individuals, and I believe most of you, if not all of you, are or should be registered as corporations, so you won't need this. Um, there we go. So for corporations, what you have to remember is that there are two ways of sort of declaring your deductions. Okay, the first way is called the itemized deduction method. What does that mean? The itemized deduction method means that all of the expenses that you incur, you will like sort of list down all of that, and then they will be deducted from your gross sales. Okay. The difference with OSD is that your gross income, which is your taxable income, sorry, with OSD, your taxable income is essentially just 60% of your gross income. What is gross income? It's your gross sales minus your cost of sales. So whatever is left, no, whatever that amount is, essentially you're saying 40% of that is like other expenses and deductions, right? And then your tax payable is 30% of that taxable income. And then you also have the minimum corporate income tax. So note that starting year 4 and onwards, there are businesses that are not making profit, especially if you're starting out. You want to reinvest a lot of your revenue into improving your product, getting a better product market fit, etc. So you're probably not going to have any net income yet, positive net income. So what's going to happen is that in the first 3 years of your business, you can actually opt to not, you will not be liable for income taxes. What that means is that it's going to be zero, no? But starting year 4 onwards, the idea is that there's a minimum corporate income tax you have to pay. Okay, and that is your gross sales minus your gross profit again, which is your gross sales minus your cost of sales. 2% of that is the minimum corporate income tax you have to pay. Why? Because the government says if you survived up to year 4, it's impossible that you do not have net profit. That's their logic there, no? But I believe this was like created before the days of startups and all of the VCs and investments happened. Like Amazon was not profitable for like 10 plus years. No, so but anyways, this is like our rule in the Philippines, and this is something that you may want to remember for corporate income tax. All right, next we go to sales taxes. Let's talk about VAT. Okay. Oh, sorry. Before that, one thing that I would like to point out is the schedule. Where is that? There. The schedule for income tax. The schedule for income tax for corporate income taxes. It is quarterly. Okay, guys. A lot of people think that they only have to do this once a year. That is wrong. Okay, you have to submit your income tax form, I believe 2 months or 60 days, 60 calendar days after the end of the quarter. So what that means is that your January, February, March, it will be due on May 30. Okay, so you have to provide quarterly income tax reports to the BIR. If I do not have to pay anything, do I still file? Yes, you still need to file. Okay, filing is separate from payment. Even if it's zero, you still have to file. Otherwise, you'll get penalties even if it's zero. Okay. Okay. So now let's move on. We go to VAT. So how VAT works is that when you sell something, 12% of that goes to the government, right? So it's the value added tax. Um, and when you buy something, especially if it's from a VAT supplier, normally you also pay a portion of that as VAT, correct? The VAT that you collect is called your output tax or output VAT. Okay? The VAT that you pay whenever you buy from your suppliers is called your input VAT. So the payable VAT, the net payable VAT that you have to pay is your output VAT minus your input VAT. And that is the amount that you have to remit to the government. All right? So that's how it works. VAT is submitted on a monthly basis. So you submit. So it's the cadence is like this, no. So it's monthly, monthly, quarterly, monthly, monthly, quarterly, monthly, monthly, quarterly, no. So for February, you'll see here. I'm not sure if you see my mouse, but yeah, here in February, you're actually submitting for January. Okay, so the month of January. For March, you are submitting for the month of February. And then for April, oh, this is for individual, by the way. So for May, you will be submitting for January to March. Okay, so that's the thing. That is what you have to remember in terms of filing. Also, every quarter, you have to submit what's called a summary list of sales and a summary list of purchases. So it essentially details all of the people that you collected VAT from, your summary list of sales. And then your summary list of purchases is the list of people that you paid your VAT to. Okay, so you submit all of those detailed documents to the BIR as well. All right. So you also, if you do not reach the 3%, the 3 million peso threshold, it is possible that you are not gonna be VAT. Okay, and instead of paying VAT, you pay what's called percentage tax. Percentage tax is a lot easier. You essentially just pay 3% of your gross sales. All right, so 3% of your gross sales goes to percentage tax. Okay, so that is the difference. But regardless, you will always have sales taxes. In terms of expanded withholding tax, okay, so for expanded withholding tax, now first of all, let's talk about it as if you're receiving it. No, if you are a B2B business, if you're a B2B startup, most likely you will when your client pays you, they withhold a certain amount. And in lieu of that withheld amount, they will provide you with what's called a certificate of creditable tax withheld, or a form 2307. What is the use of that? The use of that form is basically, they are, think of them as gift certificates. Okay, so when you pay your income tax, you can deduct whatever has been withheld from you. No? So you use those gift certificates to deduct from your income tax dues. All right. Don't that there are other types of withheld taxes. If you're working with government, normally they will withhold on sales taxes, so VAT. Yan, dyan sila nagwi-withhold. So you will deduct it with VAT, no. But otherwise, like if you're working with other private entities, most likely it's gonna be deductible from your income tax. Okay, let's say that your COR indicates that you have to get withholding, or you have to do withholding. All right. So, congratulations. If that's the case, you are now a withholding agent. So you are essentially collecting taxes for the BIR as well. Okay. How that works is that basically when you pay a supplier, you check a table, and then based on that table, which says like what your supplier's industry is, based on that table, you will now withhold a certain amount. Okay. And then in this case, in this scenario, you are the one who is now giving your supplier a form 2307. All right. This is the cadence is similar to VAT, wherein it's monthly, monthly, quarterly, monthly, monthly, quarterly. All right. The quarterly alpha list of payees, the QAP, that is the attachment that you have to submit along with your quarterly payments. Okay. And then you also have to submit what's called a 1604E, which sort of summarizes all of your submissions for the year, to the BIR every March. Okay, so those are things to remember. Now let's move on to your withholding tax on compensation. So this some key changes now. A lot of, well, since this has been since 2018, so you may know about this, or but otherwise, before, there are deductions based on how many dependents you have, correct? Like if you have 4 kids, then there's more deductions. The maximum of that is 250K. With train, everyone gets that 250K deduction by default, okay, when it comes to withholding tax on compensation. And then you, as a business, if you have employees, you have to submit a 1601C every month. Okay, so you submit that to the BIR as well. If you do not have employees, but it says on your COR withholding tax on compensation, you will still have to submit the form. Okay, so yun siya. But as long as you have employees, you will always have to submit this. So it's monthly. And then every January, you also have to submit what's called the 1604C, which is similar to 1601C. It sort of summarizes all of the filings that you made for the year. Note there, if you have employees, you now have also to give your employees the Form 2316. Okay, what is the Form 2316? People coming from an employment background think this is the income tax form. But actually, this is the form that says how much did your company withhold from you. Okay? So that is the Form 2316. Now, as the company, you're the one who's going to provide this to your employees. Note that some people call this their income tax return, and they expect a refund when it happens. A lot of people think that when we submit the taxes to the BIR, income tax return, income tax refund, or income tax return, we get something back kasi daw return. Okay, so return in like in their terminology, in their word, return is actually another word for form. All right, um, you will not get anything back. When you were an employee, normally you would get some sort of refund that actually comes from the company. They are adjusting their with how much they withheld from you. Okay, but normally you won't get that from the BAR. Also, you have to submit what's called an alpha list. No, so you have to submit your alpha list of employees to the BIR as well. Before, the rule was you had to get a CD-ROM, and you have to burn it on the CD-ROM and give it to the BIR. But I believe that was last year, 2019. A lot of people complained to the BIR because CDR King was no longer selling CD-ROMs. So what happened was the BIR actually issued a new memorandum saying, "Oh, we will now accept USBs." Okay, so now you bring a USB with that alpha list, you bring it to the BIR, they will copy it into their computer, give you back your USB. Some BIRs, some RDOs actually keep the USB, whatever. But one thing to note, one thing to remember in terms of like cybersecurity, once you get that USB back, make sure you format it because it probably now has a virus because that computer, everyone plugs into that computer with their alpha list. Okay. All right. So that is taxes. Okay. Now, that should sort of give you like an overview of like what taxes are, what's applicable to your business. Now, I want to talk to you about what are the implications of taxes to your finances. All right, because a lot of people forget taxes when it comes to their financial modeling. And what happens is that when they start to legitimize their business, then they will suddenly realize that, hey, if I'm registered and I start paying VAT, I don't earn anything. That is a failure on the part of the entrepreneur because they did not consider taxes as part of their expenses. No, it's part of the game, guys. So you have to make sure that you consider that in your financial modeling. First thing that you have to remember, as Miss Marie explained a while ago, there are different types of what do you call this, of financial statements. Okay, so you have the balance sheet and your profit and loss. Now there are certain types of accounts also that you use that like wherein they will fall under either balance sheet or profit and loss. Okay, when I say balance sheet, this includes your assets, which includes your bank accounts, receivables, etc. When I say liabilities, this includes your debts, your payables. And when I say equities, this is like, for example, any investments that come in, any capital. Okay? The profit and loss accounts naman, income and expense, this is self-explanatory. This is basically your income and your expense. They're, when you dig into this further, they're actually part of equities. So, but I won't confuse you anymore. But the thing that you have to remember is that when it comes to taxation, what you're taxed on is your profit and loss accounts, no, your income and expenses. If you get any capital, if you get any grants, if you get any investment, that is not taxable, okay, because that is capital. What is taxable would be your sales, no. So that's that, no. So your profit and loss accounts, this is where you get your tax dues from. All right, if you receive yung form 2307 that I said a while ago, those are actually assets. They're the GCs are assets, they're as good as cash, and you deduct them from your taxes, right? So they are assets. And then you also have liabilities. If you withhold a certain amount from your employees, note that what the amount you withheld in terms of expenses is not a tax expense. Okay, the amount you withheld is technically still a salary expense. The amount you withheld is essentially you are paying taxes on behalf of your employee. That's how it works. Okay, it's just that instead of them paying it, you're the one paying it. That's how you think about it, no. So like in terms of expense, your expense in terms of salaries would include the withheld taxes of your employees, and then you now have a payable to the government, which is how much you withheld. Okay, so that's how you think about it. So as you do your financial modeling, you can forget about the assets and liabilities part. When you do your financial modeling, especially your projections, you have to consider your income and sales taxes when it comes to your income and expenses. All right. Okay. Next point, and this is true especially for platforms. May I know, are there any startups here who are doing multi-sided platforms, or are you all single-sided? And when I say multi-sided platforms, it's like platforms like Lazada, where they have sellers and buyers that they both manage, or like Grab, wherein they have the drivers and the riders. No, so do we have any platforms here as well?
Speaking for the startups, I believe there are, because
There are.
there oh
Yes. Got it. Thank you,
there
Shore.
okay.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Guys, don't be shy, no. Yeah, don't be shy. I don't bite. So, anyways, so if this is especially difficult or especially tricky if you have a platform, no, because you have to determine who gives the official receipt. In other words, how much of that money that comes in do you recognize as revenue? Okay, so let's say we are Lazada. Okay, let's say we are Lazada. We are an e-commerce platform. The user pays us 1,000 pesos. Who gives the OR? Let's say we will give the OR as Lazada. We will give the OR 1,000 pesos. And then we will give the seller their cut, which is, let's say, 80%, 800 pesos. So our real sale is actually 200 pesos, right? So that's like the first way of seeing it. Next. Where do I next? Yeah, the other way of seeing it is um, you actually record the sale as just the 200 pesos, and then you record the 800 pesos directly as a liability, as a payable to your seller. What does happen is that you have to provide the receipt, and the seller has to provide the receipt. Okay, so you have to look at that way as well. Actually, how Lazada does it is that everything goes to the seller pays Lazada. So actually, it's even easier for Lazada to just offer the OR to the seller. But anyway, this is like just to simplify things. This is how you want to look at it also. Okay, so what is the impact of this? No, what is the impact of the how much you're recognizing? Let's look at VAT. In the first example, your sale, your real sale, like how much money is yours, is 200 bucks, right? 200 pesos. The VAT is computed against your OR, how much you OR'd, which is the whole 1,000 pesos. So your VAT is 120 pesos. So your income at the end of the day is 80 bucks, right? 80 pesos. Now, let's say you are you did the second model. So the VAT you recognized is just 12% of the 200 pesos, right? Because that's the only amount you OR'd. It's 24 pesos. Look, your income is now 176 pesos. Okay, so you have to be very clear on how you recognize revenue recognition. Okay, you have to be clear because this will impact your numbers. And as you can see, it's more than double. All right. So you have to understand who gives the OR, what part is recognized as revenue. I would recommend that you get legal opinion if you can, also because that helps your case. Later on, the BAR is very fond of doing audits, especially if they see that, hey, these guys are making a lot of money, let's audit them. No, so you want to make sure that you sort of have that protection and that you consulted an expert on this. So it's good to have some legal opinion on that as well. Okay, so any questions on this? Oh, wait, sorry, I have the Q&A after this naman. So this is one thing that you always have to look at, no? Another thing is if you have a subscription business, no, if you have a subscription business like Taxumo, for example, we have subscriptions that are annual subscriptions. The revenue we recognize is recognized on a monthly basis. What does that mean? So the customer pays us 12,000 pesos for the annual, right? Every month, we declare 1,000 pesos of that 12 pesos. Of that 12,000 as a revenue. So therefore, what happens is that the monthly VAT that we declare is 12% of that 1,000 pesos or just 120 bucks. Okay. Of course, we're just essentially delaying the inevitable, to be honest with you, no, because later on you will have to pay that whole amount anyway, right? It's just that you have to make sure that it's there, but it does help that the cash is still with you. No, it does help, and also it helps that, let's say for example, your expenses are gonna be later pa. So those expenses can actually offset some of your VAT that you're supposed to declare later, no? So it does help with your cash flow. So if you have like longer term subscriptions, you can actually declare them on a monthly basis as well. All right. Okay. Now, one thing when it comes to VAT, I want you, or the best practice is that you want to remove VAT from your top line P&L. What does that mean? You want to make sure the price of your product is not like the VAT included price. Okay? Sorry, not the price, but rather like the sale price or the revenue you get for the product that you're selling, it is sans VAT, remove VAT. Okay? So how do you compute that? So how much it is? Let's say it's 1,000 pesos. So your VATable amount or the actual amount that you earn, the actual income that you have is 1,000 divided by 1.12. Okay, that will give you the VATable amount. Remove VAT because VAT is essentially how you treat VAT is it's not your fault. Okay? It's not your fault. And what do I mean by that? I mean that let's say your product is 1,000 pesos. Now, when I sell it, it becomes 1,120 because there is VAT. Okay? The VAT is always not yours. You're always just collecting it on behalf of the government. All right? So that's how you want to look at it. The price that you're selling at or the income that you're projecting, especially when you do your forecasts, make sure that you already remove VAT from that. All right. Next, do not forget your LGU taxes. Okay, it is important that you don't forget your LGU taxes, and they vary depending on the LGU. I'm not sure about CDO, but for example, in Taguig they base it on your gross revenue, but in Makati they base it on your net revenue. So you always have to understand, you always have to set aside money for this also. Don't be surprised later on that, oh, what, how much, no? So you always have to anticipate this. Okay, other key points, you always file. Okay, this is important. You always file. Do not forget your zero tax due form. Sometimes it's zero, so you don't pay, but you will file regardless. All right. You want to include your LGU taxes as well in your financial models, all right, and your income taxes if you can in your financial models. They will be at the very bottom. Those are the items that you deduct after like getting all of your normal business income and expenses. That number before taxes is called the EBITDA. So a lot of investors look at the EBITDA. Why is that? Because they will look at the viability of the business regardless of the business environment. So a lot of investors will do that. Um, I want you also to, and one advice also is that you want to explore government incentive programs. There are a lot. In fairness to the government, there are programs available that can help us, and not just our government. There are also aid packages from other governments that are being offered to the Philippines. No, so this is specific to Cagayan de Oro. But there are incentives to qualified investors wherein you are exempted from real property tax and license and permit fees for the next 3 years. No? So this is essentially you will have to have a capital of 10 million pesos, or you need to employ at least 50 people. All right. So this is programs like this. You want to make sure you're aware of them. Other programs, the BOI has what they call the investment priority plan. So we were actually the first startup to be included in the BOI's investment priority plan. Um, and just to tell you a little bit of a story, when we applied for that, they did not know anything about technology. So what happened was we even had to explain them what a subscription model was. We had to explain to them what the cloud was. So much so that when they visited our office, because they had to do like an office visit, they were looking for the servers. They saw like like a LAN server there, and they asked, "Is that the server?" "No, sir, we are cloud." So we had to explain everything again. But I think I'd like to think we sort of paved the way, so I think they have a better understanding of that. So you can also apply for that. What do you get from that? You will get a 3-year income tax holiday, and you will get exemptions from your local business taxes as well. No, yeah. So that's the good thing about that. For us, it was especially useful because it was a foot in the door for government agencies, especially since we work with government. No? Other grant programs, so you want to look at the DOST PSHERD. They call it PSHERD. DOST PCIE are the startup grant. So they do provide that. I believe there are specific problems that they want you to solve. If what you're doing solves one of those problems, then you can apply for that grant. Idea Space also. Idea Space is a great program. We are proudly an Idea Space startup. And they do provide excellent mentorship, and their network is so vast here in the Philippines, especially. So it's good. The program is also very well done because they do focus a lot on validation, which is what you want the early part of your startup. Um, and then you also have Australian Aid, no? Australian Aid, um, um, they give incentives also through a program called ESIP, or the what do you call this? Innovation for Social Impact and Partnerships program, no? So go to that website. You can apply for their program, and sila, they are focused on social enterprises that have a social impact target. Okay, so if what you're doing has a social impact target, apply to that. And they're partnered with Australian Aid. They do give grants as well. Another is RISE TA, or RISE Technical Assistance, they call it. Okay, you can apply to this. This is for whole Southeast Asia. Most likely you will need someone to endorse you. So look in your network of contacts. When you speak to some investors, most likely they will have contacts for this. But when that happens, ask for an endorsement to Rise TA. So just go to this platform, and they will give you a grant. The idea here is that it's essentially a 0% loan. And not only that, they will absorb a certain percentage of that loan, um, based on how much you've raised. So for example, we have raised 560,000 USD. So so they absorb 30% of that loan amount for us. Okay? So when we want to loan. Okay, so those are the different grant programs available. Remember, no, when it comes to taxes, you can outsource the work, but you cannot outsource the liability. At the end of the day, it is you, the business owner, who will be liable for whatever issues will arise with your business. Okay? All right. Allow me to speak a little bit about Taxumo and what we do. As I said, Taxumo is a web application, works on any browser and on any device. You just enter your income and expenses, and in real time, your tax dues are calculated, so you always know how much you have to set aside. The forms that you need to submit are automatically filled out. You can submit those to the BIR because we are directly connected with the BIR as a tax software provider. And then you can also pay them online through whatever channel makes sense. You can also even pawn shops, actually, Cebuana Luwilier, M Luwilier, LBC, whatever channel is easiest for you, you can pay through those channels, and we will remit that to the BIR. The books of accounts, you will also have books of accounts reports available to you, which are automatically created by Taxumo. Also, via machine learning, Taxumo can recommend ways to save on your taxes. So based on like how much or how robust the data you entered is, Taxumo will give you recommendations. Hey, do this so that it's easier for you, or do this, or hey, you have to do VAT na because you exceeded 3 million, stuff like that. No, so it will have recommendations as well. If you still want a CPA with you, or an accountant, which makes sense because we do the end work, we do the tax side of things, that dirty tax side of things, no. But the CPA or your accountant can still help you in terms of like understanding the financial indicators of your business and how they translate to how you should like strategize for your business. No, that is where I believe like an accountant will really earn their salt if they are more helping you with the strategy side of things. No. Anyways, if you delegate your access to an accountant, your accountant can also see your settings. They can do that work for you, and then you can just pay on the platform. If you don't have accountants, we have Taxumo vetted CPAs who can help you. You can book time with them if you have questions. And we also have CSRs available on the platform from 9 a.m. to 12 midnight on weekdays. No? Other services, we also help with registration. Right now, we do it in Metro Manila, Baguio, Pangasinan, Tarlac, South Luzon. Hopefully soon we will have in Cebu and Davao. We're looking for partners in CDO. So if you know anyone who wants to help us in CDO, they could be partners as well. We are also You can also pay your SSS and pag-ibig through us. You can generate your PRNs as well through Taxumo, which makes it easier. And again, we're doing all of this because our mission is we want to create a Philippines that has a lot of opportunities, a world wherein Filipinos don't have to travel abroad just to provide for their families. No? And I hope that you're able to join us on that journey. Okay, so just sign up for free on taxumo.com. And with that, I'd like to open the floor. If you guys have any questions. We've also done a series, not a series, a couple of rounds already of fundraising. So if you have any questions with that, I can also possibly help you with those types of questions as well. So yeah, so there we go. Any questions?
Okay, thank you, Sir EJ. So
Sure.
again, the virtual floor is again open for question and answer. But before that, sir, I would like to remind the incubatees na please state your name and of course the startup you represent, for you to be acknowledged and for Sir EJ's reference as well. Okay,
Thank you.
so okay. So do you have any questions? Feel free to unmute yourselves or just type in our message box.
Sure. If you're asking nasan ako, I'm in my daughter's room, obviously. With the pink ceiling, di ba?
Akala ko happy mo, sir.
Dito lang tahimik eh, kaya dito ako pumupunta. Ayun.
Hi, Richelle. Can I go first?
Oh, take it away, sir.
Hi, sir. My name is Richard. You can call me Cards from Dirtbag.
Hello, Cards. Hello,
Yeah,
sir.
hi. Yes. I'd like to ask, since I mentioned more regarding fundraising. No, I'm just curious because I encountered some questions regarding what series we are in. So actually, I'm still not matured enough to understand that kind of question because right now, for me, I feel like we're still on the angel investment because we're just asking friends and minimal amount. So is there a proper definition of this? Because currently we are asking millions na, and also in terms of valuation, we are still not definite on how we arrive at such. Pero we already got some investments on that. Pero when it comes to like, I think you've heard about the question about convertible notes earlier, and there was also a question about what series are we in now. I'm just not prepared for that kind of question. Can you shed a light on that?
Sure. Yeah. So your stage would depend on your level of validation. Okay. So let's say you are still validating whether you have product market fit. And product market fit, the definition of product market fit is arguable. It could be because you're already earning profit from your business. That's a basic definition. If you're earning profit, then there is likely product market fit. If you have robust experiments that you have conducted that show that also, then good. You can also show that, hey, I have product market fit. Look, we have X thousand users. Obviously that problem exists for these users, so we have product market fit. No, there are cases when there's no profit, even though there's a lot of users. No, because that's how they planned out the business. So you are at seed stage if you are still validating your product market fit. Okay, so you are at seed stage. Normally, also when you say seed stage, you use that money to create, like, if not the first MVP. No, I would not recommend you raise from investors when it comes to creating an MVP. But rather, I would think, let's say it's the first iteration of your product, then that is seed. Okay, you will use that amount for that. No, kaya siya seed because you're sort of it's starting your business. Now, after you have already like you've built a solid foundation, you are on your way to growth. Now, when you want to expand, then you start your Series A. Yan na siya. Expansion can either be expansion to geography, expansion to a new market, expansion to a new market segment. No, not necessary. For example, for us, we were originally focused on individuals, so we are raising for now. We want to focus on corporations. That can also be a Series A raise expansion. Okay. Um, Having said that, there are also, like, before, like, in the middle rounds. No, so for example, there's also bridge rounds. So there's a bridge round because you need to raise some money between your seed and your Series A. It's still not Series A because we're not big enough, so we're gonna call it a bridge round. So you can do that. No, but that is the basic definition of what the seed and the Series A is, at least in the point of view of, like, VCs. I would recommend that when you tell them what stage you are, you explain further. Don't just tell them we're seed. Tell them we're actually this is the first investment we're getting, but we are actually already expanding, so this is actually Series A. Okay, so like, explain it, because there is no formal definition. Like, how people use it differs. So explain it a bit further when you tell them where you are. So that's fine. Now, on your question on valuation. So how do you do valuation? Okay, first of all, I think a lot of Filipinos do valuation. We don't give ourselves enough credit. Okay, I think when we do valuation, we value our company so low. Okay, I think when you do your valuation, aim high. Okay, why? Because number one, we are the 12th most populous nation in the world. Okay, the maps show that the Philippines look small, no? But that's like the Mercator map. When you look at the map, like, how tall the Philippines is in terms of, like, north to south, it's actually the same as America. That's how big we are. So we are a big country. We have a lot of people. We don't have population control. We like a lot of people, no? So the market is huge in the Philippines. That's number one. So don't think that we are a chain of islands, so we're small. That's not true. We are actually There's a lot of people in the Philippines. Um, in terms of valuation, what model do you use? The model that personally I've seen works well for me, especially at the early stage of your startup, meaning you don't have any, like, regular profit yet, or you don't want to use that as basis for any valuation. What works well is called shoot, I forgot the word, but basically what you do, I think it's box valuation method. But basically what you do is you look at different factors. Like, for example, first of all, you look for a similar startup in another country, wherever, and how much they raised. What was their valuation during that time? And then you compare, do you have as big a market? If not, then let's say, okay, my market is maybe just 60% of theirs. So I will score myself 60% on that. And then you look at your team. Are you composed of a team that is, the multidisciplinary enough? Do they have the background? Do you have, like, superstars in your team that will bring you to that next stage of valuation? Then that will determine whether you are at par with, like, how good that other startup's team is. No, your comparison startup. You also want to look at your solution. Is it something that is as innovative? It is something that is IPable, um, and factors like that. And then you basically use that, like, benchmark startup, and then compute yours versus that. Okay, The reason why it works is that it's very easy for investors to understand. You could say, we based ourselves after Lazada, but we're just focused on CDO. Therefore, our market is just, let's say, Mindanao, let's say. So our market is, let's say, one third of that, of Lazada. So therefore, our valuation will be one third of that. Something like that. No, so that helps with valuation. The other way kasi of doing valuation is that you can look at your revenue, and then you use a multiple. So it's like times five for like goods, and then if it's services or if it's like software, it's normally times 10 of your revenue, of your annual revenue. If you're early stage, you might not have hit that ideal revenue yet, right? So you don't want to use that as your basis. So that's why, eventually you'll use this when you go into like um, a bigger rounds, no. But at the start, I would recommend you use the smaller one. At the end of the day, it's salesmanship. Like, how well can you sell that valuation of yours? Can you defend it? That is what will matter at the end. Okay? So, dapat mukhang alam mo yung ginawa mo. And I'm sure naman you would have done the work, eh. You would have done your valuation, eh. So you could defend it. This is how we did it. Why? What's wrong with it? This is like how other people do it, diba? So, that's it. Now on your, sorry, I think I got a lot of tangents. Your question on convertible notes. Okay, so convertible notes basically, it's a loan that is given to you, and then instead of paying the cash amount at the end of the loan, you will pay with shares. And normally there are triggers, like, for example, if you go into a liquidity event. What is a liquidity event? Let's say you raise uh, with like an actual like equity amount, or you go into IPO, or you go into acquisition. Okay, so there will be an amount yon. Then that is when they trigger that conversion. The thing with convertible notes is most of the time it is up to the investor. Like, they have a clause there that says, and this is what you want to look for. Okay, there's a clause there that says, we will decide when we want to trigger. Okay, so say no, because you want to make sure that that trigger is something that is like very objective. Let's say an IP or an acquisition. That's number one. Number two, normally they will get a discount. No, meaning that, okay, when you do that liquidity event, since that's in the future and we're investing early, we should get a bonus, right? So what happens is that when you convert to us, you give us a 30% discount. From what I've heard, 30% is pretty standard during COVID, but I think it's starting to go down, thankfully. So when you raise, you can like forgo, you can like go with a lower discount, but you will give a discount. Okay, so it's like 15 to 30%. Um, so yun. So let's say later on when you do your, let's say you IPO, and let's say you're gonna be 100 pesos a share. So what that means is that they are just, since they have a 30% discount, their conversion, how much it is to them is just 70 pesos per share. Okay, so that's how it works. That is how convertible notes work. No, one thing that you do have to understand is that you have to make sure you have a cap. Okay, what is a cap? A cap is, there's a maximum, there's like a minimum price that you will reach. Okay, you have to make sure that's in the contract, because let's say later on there are unforeseen problems, and then you weren't able to like sell at that 100 pesos. Instead, you sold at 50 pesos. No, so now, it might be that, like, if you're giving them a 30% discount, then that's minus, it's too low basically, so it might be too low, so you want to set a cap also, like, this is the lowest we can go. So those are the things you want to look out for when you're doing convertible notes. So there, I hope that helps.
Actually, sir, a lot. Yeah, you really clarified everything that
Good.
gave me doubts. Like, for example, if someone will ask like this, does it mean that for a particular loan, it's if we decide to pay on equity, the whole amount of loan, that includes also the interest, right? There's a discussion
Uh-uh.
about interest.
There is, but like it's either like interest or like that discount. So normally there are some who will say, okay, don't pay us interest, but give us a big discount. Especially, so they will do that if they feel really strongly about your startup. I would go with those people, because you want people who believe in you. At the end of the day, you want people who are on board with your vision, and more than anything, that's what matters.
Is it possible also to pay the loan amount in cash and the interest in shares, or normally it should be everything should be in shares?
Oh yeah, it depends. No, there are some convertible notes where the structure is you will pay them every year until they decide just give us shares. There is that also. So it's very very investor friendly. The convertible notes. It's almost risk free for them, to be honest. No, but your question, yes, that's possible. If you want that, make sure that you talk about that, and then make sure it's in your contract, in your in your contract.
So kumbaga sir, it's in their hands, like you mentioned about trigger earlier, right? So
Mm.
it's like basically okay, we have the freedom to wait until your valuation is high, and then when it's high, we feel like okay, converting,
Mm-mm.
then we use that kind of valuation, something like that ba yun?
Yes, that's possible. So what can happen kasi normally what I've seen is that it's either a liquidity event or X amount of years, whichever comes first. So that's what I've seen. So yun ang ano, yun yung nakikita kong arrangement.
Thank you sir, pretty clear, crystal. Thank you so much for
Okay. Thank you. Glad I could help. Cards.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, din cards. Sir EJ, we have a question in our message box. Okay, this is from Miss Alex from Yes Tech.
Hmm.
Uh, it says, you mentioned you have raised money in rounds already. Can you share with us the VCs or investors you have engaged with or competitors?
Yeah. So when we first started our raise, it was the three F's. So friends, family, and fools. That's what they call it, the three F's. But we started raising with friends, so we were able to raise. Actually, the first round was essentially really mostly us, like the founders who like gave into the fund, and then afterwards we looked for a venture builder in Singapore. Actually, a VC, an investor in Singapore. We didn't know whether it would be venture builder, venture capital, whatever. No. But we got a venture builder in Singapore. Their name is Reapra. Reapra. So their principal is Japanese, but they are based in Singapore. They are very different from a lot of VCs because a lot of VCs will push for rapid growth. Okay, so they will push for rapid growth. Why? Because how VCs work is that they will invest a small amount of money on many startups. Chances are most of their startups will fail. But for the ones that do, they will more than recoup, they will recoup more than the amount they invested in total. That's how VCs work. So that's why they push everyone to, hey, make sure you do this, make sure you expand quickly, make sure you expand Southeast Asia agad, Southeast Asia agad. Be very careful when you're working with VCs. They are very much like that, no? So that's why we went with Reapra, because Reapra, they're a venture builder. So they set themselves apart because they're focused on profit. They don't want you to grow so fast to other markets and grow your valuation. They're more focused on you being a profitable enough business that you are the one acquiring other businesses later. So we like that. We like that point of view from them. So that's why we went with them. So that's Reapra. Um, After that, during that round, that was a seed round, we also did a round with an investor. We were able to look for an angel investor here in the Philippines. So he invested his personal money. Um, it was burning a hole in his pocket, so he invested it in Taxumo. It's very difficult to look for investors here in the Philippines, in my experience. Most of the investors I spoke to in the Philippines are very, very predatory, I would say, such that they will, like, if you watch, let's say, shows like Final Pitch, right? So their investment is 10 million pesos for 40%. And it sounds big, but actually, guys, you will not be able to raise again after that. Why? Because you do not have enough equity as a founder, and you only raised 10 million pesos. Okay, that's too low. That's too little. So I mean, that's too little for you to lose your equity. So that is like the standard right now. 10 million pesos for 40%. That's not good for you, especially if you plan on doing additional rounds later. Uh, what did help was we were able to find this investment network in the Philippines called MAIN. They're called the Manila Angel Investors Network. And they're pretty good because they're more well versed with like ventures and how you invest in ventures. And in my experience, because they invested in us also, this main. So what happened is that it's a pool of angel investors, and they invested in us. Um, Now, what's nice is that they are very, very conscious about, hey, it's your business, it's your decision, but this is what we think. This is our input, and they're very helpful. There's nothing wrong with getting dumb money in quotation marks, meaning it's just money. But there is value if you get from people who can actually provide help. So for example, from there we were able to get contacts with the Senate. So we're able to sort of help push for legislation that will make taxes easier for everyone, stuff like that. That so that we could achieve our mission. No, um, so that's great. No, so that's the thing. Did I answer that question? Yun. So that's who we raised from.
Yes, sir, EJ. I think it did. Miss Alex left a message in
Okay.
our chat box.
There. Okay.
Yes, she agreed.
Oh. Mm-mm.
Okay, so thank you, Dirtbug and Yestek. How about the other incubatees? Ihatid, who's here? Kit, do you have any question? Okay, I think none. How about Ted from Checkmate? Okay, wala. Okay, none daw. Okay, sir, ako na lang. Okay, so,
Sure.
what are the, say, common mistakes and
Mm.
myth or misconceptions about taxes that could lead to a serious tax problem?
All right. So the common
Yes.
mistake is that you don't consider taxes in your financial modeling. Um, this is what I said a while ago. When you legitimize, you realize, oh my gosh, when I pay 12%, that means my profit is now negative. Yan, that means you didn't do proper financial modeling. The challenge with that is that if you already have customers, you would later find out that you were actually selling to them at a rate that you were lugi pala. So now it's like the validation that you got is basically invalid because they were paying at a price that was not the right price. So you want to make sure that in your financial modeling you consider your taxes. Another is a lot of businesses forget that they have to file their taxes because it's zero. No, so yon. So you have to make sure you always file. Okay. Um, here's the thing. I think be wary. Ito be wary of service providers who say they can help you because they have contacts with the BIR. May mga ganyan, di ba? Like, you can, because kilala ko yung nasa RDO, friend ko siya. Ninong siya ng anak ko, stuff like that. So, be careful with that because, one racket that happens is, and we have helped a lot of customers who had problems like this,
Mm-mm.
they actually have forms that have stamps from the BIR but are not recorded in the BIR. Apparently, whatever payment was being made was like split between that CPA and the officer. That was their racket. And so sometimes the officer would like do audits, no? Ito, ingat kayo because one style that officers do, like auditors do, is that they will order from your business and they will wait for an official receipt. If you do not provide an official receipt, automatic 50,000 pesos in penalty. Or chuchung, so you have to be no. So that's one thing that you have to be careful of, especially if you're starting to make noise, if you're starting to do ads. I would recommend that you give receipts regardless if they ask for it or not. Why is that? Because at the end of the day, whether they keep it is their problem, but what's important is that you issued it. Okay. This is the reason why doctors are favorite targets of auditors because doctors are in one building. Di ba? So actually, what auditors do, papatingin sila sa isang doktor and then they will wait. Kung walang OR, okay, penalty agad. And then they will move to the next clinic. Kung wala yung mga sign, kung wala yung mga ask for receipt, yung mga plaka, penalty agad. So madaling mag-ikot, madali silang maghanap ng ng mga mape-penalize. That's why doctors have a very fraught relationship with the BIR because they're very easy to audit. But having said that, I think you just have to make sure that you do your end of the bargain. I would say don't be too wise about your taxes because there are people like that and the reason is that the penalties and the worry and everything is not worth it, to be honest. As long as you're doing your business and you have the proper financial modeling, you imputed all of those tax costs anyway in your financial modeling, then and it's like following your modeling, then you're good. Okay, so that's it.
Well said, sir. I think in the of startups, I think they really need that
Mm.
because of course they have to be well prepared. So the last thing we want them is to be
Correct.
caught off guard in a serious tax problem, dahil lang sa minute na details na
Mm-mm.
nakaligtaan.
Oo, and style ng BIR, they will make an example out of you. So lagot kayo sa CDO Bites because you're associated with CDO Bites and you have BIR issues and then you're in the newspaper, lagot ka. So yon. So be careful.
I have a follow-up question in relation to what you said.
Sure cards.
Yeah, because right now, you mentioned earlier, no, about what kind of revenue we declare.
Mm-mm.
Just to introduce to you Dirtbag, we partner
Sure.
with existing laundry shops, no. So, but currently, the model is still what the customer sees is Dirtbag as the brand.
Mm-mm.
So, in as a result, we are the ones who provide or who issues the receipt for the customer. So medyo masakit yung
Oo,
3%
malaki.
percentage tax, no? But still, since we are still finalizing our business model or revenue model, so it's okay. We can still kumbaga swallow that. Now the question now is about the income tax
Mm-hmm.
because there are decisions we make abruptly. Like for example, okay, we need extra person who does the packaging or the fulfillment,
Mm.
no, or we need an extra vehicle to deliver. So we go around where we can find cheaper suppliers. So
Mm-mm.
most of the suppliers of, like, let's say, delivery vehicles are personally owned who does not have a receipt, right? But still we have to put that in our books because we spend money on that. But
Mm-mm.
since there's no receipt, there's no corresponding expense now we can
Yes, that
declare
you
to
can
BIR
declare.
so we can get exemption.
True.
Yeah, so what's the work around on that? Because it's anyway, it's not cheating, right? I mean, in a way, we just want a work around to help us, lessen our tax because we did pay a certain amount. It's just that the entity that we paid is not registered. So is
Mm-mm.
there a work around on that?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. I wouldn't call it a workaround. If there are not a lot of expenses, kung konti lang yan, then as long as you have like a proof, documentation that money was spent, acknowledgement, whatever, then normally that's good enough. But note that threshold of whether that's big enough changes depending on the auditor. Okay? There are auditors who are more forgiving and they will say, okay, sige, that okay, sige, maliit lang yan. And they will say, there are auditors who will say, hindi, regardless, hindi mo dapat i-declare. That's the challenge. No? Now, what Lazada does, and Lazada na yan, what Lazada does is they have all of their messengers register. Their messengers need to provide a receipt to Lazada when they deliver. So I would say that like if you want to be as safe as possible, that is the best route to take. And the reason why a lot of auditors are like that is because they want to encourage legitimate businesses doing business with other legitimate businesses as well. So that, the businesses who aren't legitimate will be incentivized to go legit. So that's the thing. I would be very careful about declaring, especially if it's big. Yung mga paunti-unti okay lang yan, but like if especially if it's a big part of your expenses, I would be very careful about declaring that as an expense. As much as possible, I would recommend that you get your messengers to get what's called, or like the delivery people or whoever you contract, at least have them get or have them register as professionals. Okay? Kasi I think what people think is that when they register as sole prop, they need to get mayor's permit, etc., etc. That is too much if you're just doing like motorcycle deliveries, right? There is an entity called a professional. They can register as that, and they're providing services. So that's exactly what they are. So in this case, they just need to do the following: they need to get an occupational tax receipt from their LGU, which is a set amount, like 170 pesos at most, I think. And then they will now register sa BIR. And that's it, they're done. So now they can issue receipts to you already. So that
How
would
about Facebook?
facilitate.
How about Facebook ads?
Yeah, Facebook ads, good question. So Facebook ads are, you can declare them as expenses, especially since you have that paper and especially since they are not in the Philippines. How else are you going to get any type of receipt? No, but as long as you have that documentation, you can declare that. Now, remember that whole deal about taxing Netflix? You know that whole issue
Yeah,
about
yeah.
that. Remember that? Yeah. So that applies actually to all digital services. What does that mean? So what the government is saying is that you have to pay VAT when you eat up any digital service, and that includes digital ads. That includes Facebook. Okay. The implication is that if you do not have a receipt from Facebook, and they would have a receipt now because apparently you have to pay VAT, diba? So that means they have a Philippine entity. If you do not have a receipt for that or you do not pay VAT for that, then you cannot declare that as an expense. That bill, I believe, has not yet been signed, or if it has been signed, it does not have the IRR yet, so medyo on hold pa siya. But that is one thing that you will have to keep an eye out for. Okay, you probably have your PESEL analysis, no, like your legal risk factors. Add that to that. You want to keep an eye on that. Once the IRR is released for that law, then Facebook will most likely create some sort of local entity so that that's who we pay, or probably they'll go to distributors like like Globe. They can do that. Google as well, for like Google Ads, etc. They're probably gonna do the same thing. But otherwise, for now, you can actually use the receipts that you get from the platform. One tip is that if you are a withholding tax agent, let's say you have withheld taxes in your COR, right? Diba? You have to withhold for all suppliers. I would recommend that you pay your digital services through credit card, because when you do so, the card actually does a withholding when they pay out that supplier. So that's when you use a credit card, it exempts you from withholding. Does that make sense? So yun. So that's a tip.
Yes,
Thank you,
very
Sir
much, very much.
AJ.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
save the best for the last. Okay, our final question for this session will be coming from our TBI manager, Miss Shore.
Okay, Miss Shore.
Hi. Hindi
Okay.
naman 'to bigatin na question 'no, gusto ko lang malaman. 'Cause, before the Startup Act was, signed and enacted, there were, rumors na merong tax anong tawag dito? I
Incentives?
forgot. Yes, ang mga ganyan ng startups. Pero as far as I know, wala, no? So, do
Ah,
you know anything? Do you know any perks when it comes to taxes na applicable to startups?
right. Yes. Yung apply to the programs that I said, especially the BOI Investment Priority Plan. Look for someone who can refer you to BOI, Board of Investments, because that will give you an income tax holiday. So that helps. Um, and then you can also look at the BMBE if your assets are less than 3M. If you're mainly services, which I think a lot of startups are, like you're just software, so you probably don't have a lot of assets, you may fall under BMBE. So BMBE, or Barangay Micro Business Enterprise Loan. This is what Miss Marie was talking about a while ago. It exempts you from income tax. But remember, just income tax, okay? There are other taxes. So sales tax, you're not exempt. Stuff like that. No. Will the government have other programs later on? Honestly, I don't think so. because it is like the economic situation right now is so fraught, diba? It's very hard to and there's this whole PhilHealth issue and everything. I don't think they can afford to collect less, to be honest. Like that's just my read. Having said that, what they are helping out with, or the sort of trend that I'm seeing in terms of legislation, is that they're making things easier, which is good. They're making registration easier, they're making compliance easier, and eventually I hope we get to a stage where it's like super easy na lahat. um, that is where a lot of it goes. That startup fund, what happens is that it basically allocates certain budgets to different entities. So as I said, the DOST Pissured Startup Grant, they are part of that. And then there's also the DTI. So DTI has this the P3 loans. P3 loans. So you want to look at that as well. I believe there are restrictions. The biggest I've heard in terms of loans is 250k pesos. Still better than nothing. That's still a pretty sizable amount. So you can use that for loans. Um, the loan terms are actually very good. To give you an idea, I believe around 6% per annum. Sobrang baba, guys. So it's super good. So you can look for loans in those areas as well. Just a DTI, look for someone in DTI. In my experience, I love working with DTI. They are like the most on brand, in vision, really helpful bunch of people I've ever worked with. So yeah, so I think you can look for someone in DTI who can help you.
All right. Thank you so much for answering that, EJ. Kasi usually, not usually, there are some startups that I've encountered na nasasabi nila na bago pa yung startup namin, so we're not supposed to be paying taxes. And I'm like, no, that's
Mm.
not true. Oo. So it's
Mm.
good that you were able to clarify that. So that's my question.
All
Okay
right.
na ako. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Glad I was able to help. And thank you again, CDO Bytes. Thank you, Shore, for inviting me and having me for today.
All right. So that's the end of our Q&A portion. Wala na kayong questions, no? So don't worry. If you do have follow-up questions, you can just tell me, and then ano tawag dito? I'll forward it to EJ. Okay, so now to formally end our fire session this morning, I'll be giving the virtual floor now to Rhea, our project leader, for the closing remarks.
Ayan. Yes, thank you so much to our esteemed speakers. We have Miss Marie and Mr. EJ. So more than anything, this is another insightful session for your fire starter under CDO Bytes, because needless to say, since you're starting up as a business, it would be better that as early as now, you get accustomed to the tradition and you need to be able to do things the right way. Even more kasi nagsisimula pa lang tayo, so that when you grow bigger and you grow wider in scope, you already have the basics intact and you have been doing and following the fundamentals since very early. At least it will already become a habit to your company as you grow. And again, thank you so much, Incubatees, for sharing your Saturday this morning and later during the one-on-one session, because again, it is our pledge and mandate under CDO Bytes to help you in any way we can to further your startup. Thank you also to the entire CDO Bytes team for being able to put up a wonderful session today. And more than anything, may we have a wonderful weekend ahead. Happy New Year to each and everyone, and thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you in the afternoon. Thank you, EJ. Thank you, Mom Marie, if you're still here.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
EJ, can I add you on Facebook?
Yoko nga. Sure. Yes, feel free.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Goodbye,
Thank you.
everyone.